Hey truckers, today we're seeing part 6 of Supremacy games. Landlord did it again. Only 2 bombs to get rid of a player. This newbie keeps making a joke out of veterans. Is anyone going to stop him? Marlion automatically put the highlight on the large screen while shouting at the top of his voice. The spectators were cheering before he even commentated, as they were watching Felix live humiliate his pursuer with 1 bomb. Questions began to arise in the VIP rooms within the stadium, whether he was even a newbie. The VIP spectators were more knowledgeable than commoners. Thus, they could see what the commoners couldn't. At this instant, the way Felix was playing was showing an experience that could only be obtained after playing a hefty sum of games. Knowing how to pace and conserve energy, not chasing after eliminations, not making rash decisions. The list goes on and on. All of those details were not supposed to be on an unranked player. Unranked players were supposed to be dumb, scared, nervous, and have no idea what the F*** they were doing. After all, they were participating in Supremacy games for the very first time. It was common sense that the first game and even the second were always the hardest. More than 99% of unranked newbies lost their first games. It was bound to happen to the best of the bloodliners. Even the current top-ranked players lost their first games due to the lack of experience. Yet, Felix, a supposed newbie, was literally making the veterans in the game appear like they were the newbies. This sight baffled the VIP spectators, making them switch their focus to him, planning to watch him during the entire game. Above the normal seating, in one of the VIP rooms. Such a clear contrast, Wind Cloud used a total of 31 wind blades yet still didn't even damage his car. Said an elderly woman with long gray hair to another elder that was sitting beside her. Indeed, meanwhile Landlord relied only on the exterior environment to his advantage to save energy. The other elder rubbed his golden beard slightly and added with a smile, "It's clear that he is confident of his chances in emerging as the champion. How about we invite him to the clan?" She asked suddenly. Well, he is a poison user and even with a legendary bloodline. He pondered while looking at Felix's car sidestepping the lava bursts from the river. Soon, he nodded his head and decided. All right, if he managed to win the race, we will extend an invitation to join as an outer member of the clan. Well, I do believe he deserves to be an inner member. The elderly woman gave a mild smile and added, "But the clan sent you to scout for talents, not me. So it's your choice. We will see that later. For now, let's observe how he deals with those he caught up to," he said, smiling. Felix slowed his speed slightly, trying to keep his distance away from 3 hover cars in front of him. They were driving near each other in a triangle formation without fighting. Tisk, 3-member alliance, exactly what I needed. Felix rubbed his eyebrows in irritation. He was having a tough time finding a way to deal with them perfectly without wasting his energy or taking too much damage. Especially without getting delayed any further. He didn't want to entangle himself in the fight. It was not worth it. A couple of minutes quickly passed by, and Felix merely kept observing the surroundings and the players ahead of him for any loophole to take advantage of. Suddenly, the leftmost car had its window pulled down just slightly. Smoke was coming from that opening. The player was definitely smoking a cigarette. It wasn't against the rules or anything. Felix was glad that it wasn't. His eyes glowed with delight as he finally saw the opportunity he needed. If I use that inducement, I won't need to do anything. With an evil wide grin, Felix snapped his finger and a bloodish red bomb was created on top of his hand. Then, he put it at a tube connected to his front launchers and waited patiently. Fush! A sudden lava pillar rose from the river near the Alliance formation, forcing them to split apart in panic. Now! Felix immediately pressed the launch button while aiming at the car with its window lowered. Whoosh! The bomb rapidly headed towards it unnoticed by anyone due to the lava pillar and its red color. It camouflaged itself neatly with the atmosphere's bright red light. Poof! Strike! Ecstatic, Felix celebrated with a fist pump after seeing his bomb explode near the window of the car. Although the majority of the mist was left outside of the car, still a small part made it in. Felix didn't care if 1% or 99% of mist got in. As long as the player inside the car took a whiff, he would be poisoned without resistance. All new Haptors NNV.com. Showtime. He rubbed his hands together while eyeing the assaulted car in anticipation. He even slowed down his speed further to avoid their detection. He wanted nothing to mess up with his plan. That pillar scared me to death. Relieved, a chubby man wiped his sweaty forehead with his sleeve. After doing so, he hastily pressed his AP bracelet screen. Ultra Craze, Warshock, are you guys all right? He asked. I am good, Mighty Monka, I dodged successfully. A stuffy voice came from Mighty Monka's bracelet. Good, how about you, Warshock? No one responded to him. He looked at his window and found that Warshock's car was fine. So, he was quite confused about not receiving confirmation. You motherf***cur. However, his confusion was soon replaced with rage after seeing two sides cannons suddenly pop out of Warshock's car doors. They were pointing straight at his enraged face. He quickly tried to dodge by pulling the wheel to himself, trying to uplift his car. Unfortunately, he was too near to be missed or given enough time to pull that off. Boom! Boom! Two spiky golden cannonballs crashed into his car. One shattered his window and hit him right in the head, while the other penetrated his car door, easily landing on his chest. The distance between them was so close, the cannonball's penetration power was beyond massive. Mighty Monka sat unmoving with two spiky balls stuck on his body. His eyes were losing their L.U.S.Ter gradually. Yet, he had only one thought in his mind even when felt that his death was approaching. Why now? Exactly, why now? He knew that betraying each other was imminent. But he assumed that wouldn't happen until at least they reached the last lap. Otherwise, the entire alliance was meaningless. Too bad, he didn't know that there was a serpent stalking them all along, planning just for this moment. Warshock! UF.U.C.K.I.N.G retard. Why did you have to ruin our alliance now after all the effort we had to go through to build our trust? Beyond livid, Ultra Craze roared with bloodshot eyes. Who could blame him though? Everything was going smoothly. They eliminated those who targeted them and ignored those who left them alone. The only thing they focused on was to reach the finish line first. But now everything was ruined by a single attack from Warshock. There was nowhere in hell that Ultra Craze would carry his partnership with him after seeing his other allies' fate. Wait! I swear it was not me. He attacked me first, I was simply protecting myself. Warshock did not even realize he was poisoned as he frantically tried to defend himself. He wasn't lying though. He really saw that Mighty Monka was pointing at him with a finger, sizzling with electricity. He saw the same gesture before when Mighty Monka was dealing with a player. That player, who was assaulted by that electric finger, got paralyzed for 10 seconds straight before getting finished off by Ultra Craze's behemoth car. Terrified that he was going to be dealt with in the same manner as that player, he decided to attack first. You bastard, I was planning to leave you. But you dare look down on my IQ like this. Ultra Craze immediately slammed his heavy fortified car against the squishy car of Warshock. Ultimately, for him to have those kinds of massive cannons installed in his car, it only signified that he gave up on installing defensive parts. His car's standard parts didn't have a chance against Ultra Craze's behemoth car. Crash! Warshock's car didn't survive even the first collision as it dove down towards the river lava rapidly. He was smashed from above by Ultra Craze's car front bumper, which seemed like a flat metallic silver Hummer. F***CK, F***CK, F***CK. Stop! It was really not me. Scared out of his wits, Warshock kept cursing out loud while pulling the wheel to himself, trying to stabilize his car from falling any lower. Whoosh! Thankfully, he managed to do so right as he reached a few meters above the lava river. Bastards, they must have allied against me without my knowledge. But why did they act now? Warshock slapped the wheel in anger and confusion over the entire situation. He was just as bewildered as Mighty Monka. However, before his thoughts started to wander, his car roof was smashed by a spherical Hummer, bending it in a weird shape. Ultra Craze stood above Warshock's car, wearing a belt that had a long chain connected to his car. He huffed through his mouth as he lifted that hammer high above his head like he was about to deliver judgment. Smosh! He brought it down without a single ounce of hesitation. This is for looking down on my IQ. He shouted while lifting his hammer again. Stop! You will get us both killed. Frightened and shocked, Warshock removed his seat belt and lowered his body to the limit while still trying to lift his car upward. Only a few meters separated him and the lava river. Just one unlucky lava pillar popping out near him and his fate would be doomed. Unfortunately, each time he lifted his car a bit, another hammer smash ruined his efforts. Only you will die, moron. Ultra Craze lifted his hammer again and said in utter disgust, it was truly the worst alliance one can ask for. Now F***CK off. Please don't. Warshock begged out loud, yet the hammer didn't pause its descent for even a split second. Bang! This time the hammer connected with Warshock's head after not being able to lower himself any further. He truly got hammered to death unjustly. Why did I ally with such a noob? Irked and still livid, Ultra Craze pressed on a button in his belt and the chain rolled back, bringing him towards his car that was on an automatic drive. SH. Confused, Ultra Craze lifted his head slightly after hearing a sizzling sound. Immediately after, his eyes gaped in horrification at the chain that was being corroded by an acid green mist. Before he could even comprehend what he was seeing, the chain snapped in half. No! He screamed while free-falling into the lava river. Plop, plop. His hammer was the first to sink into the river, and then he followed after. Even when his body was being melted by the lava, his shrieks never stopped resounding in the area. A couple of seconds later, he quieted down forever. Till his death, he had absolutely no idea what had just happened. Nothing personal. Felix accelerated above his sizzling bones with a nonchalant expression. Not a hint of sympathy was in his eyes after he watched Ultra Craze burn to death. After all, Mercy had brought him too many betrayals and problems in his previous life. He already learned his lesson and he would be a fool to repeat the same mistakes here again. Landlord! 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 Exhilarated and feverish, the spectators chanted Felix's game name with their fists raised above their heads, flushed cheeks, and above all, standing from their seats. One bomb, one whiff. That's all it took for an alliance made of 3 players to be brought down to their knees. Such an optimal use of energy and wits made them feel like they paid to watch a high silver or gold game instead of a bronze game that was supposed to be packed with newbies and garbage players. Even though there were some silver-ranked players, they weren't really that good, since their losses must have been more than their wins to end up in this game. Now, Felix was showing how a real peak-tier gold player acts and plays. In his previous life, he never managed to get out of gold rank, but still, that was enough to walk over those scrubs. one bomb to break down an entire alliance. He didn't even need to do anything. Marlion put a close-up on Felix's serpent-like car and said in a thrilled manner, "I bet my left mouth that the red bomb was a hallucination inducement. There's no other explanation to what just happened." Marlion's guess was pinpoint, as Felix truly used a hallucination inducement. It was one of the few cost-free options. Anyone who absorbed the inducement would have his most recent worry and fear resurface in flesh. For Warshock, it was the sight of his two allies combining their strengths to kill one player within an instant. Since the moment he saw that, worry began to eat him up from inside, that he would be their next target. Hallucination inducement just made that appear in reality. The rest was history. Felix knew that individual alliances were fragile and filled with holes. Especially in bronze rank where newbies still didn't know that contracts were allowed within the game. That's right, players could sign an alliance contract, forbidding them from acting against each other until their purpose was achieved. Sometimes it would be until they kill their target successfully, while at other times, it would be until everyone died except for them. Whatever purpose or target was, the moment it was achieved the alliances fall apart, leaving everyone to fend for themselves solo. To sum it up, if the alliance Felix just destroyed signed a contract with each other, this would have never happened, or at least Warshock would have taken a couple of seconds to think of his decision until the inducement duration runs out. After all, breaking a contract meant that the Queen would destroy his consciousness, killing him straightway. Fascinating, just pure skill and wits. Delighted, the elder in the VIP room clapped his hands in praise. "Told you he deserves to be within the inner circle." The elderly woman chuckled while watching Felix's outplay again on the highlighted large screen. "Indeed, he is the whole package, smart, ruthless, talented." He nodded in agreement. Suddenly he let out a helpless sigh. "But now other clans will fight with us for him. So we need to entice him with more than just an invitation. How about we promise him with consciousness cleansed substance?" she suggested. "All right, I doubt others will be able to top it even further," he agreed and added, "but he still needs to win the game. That's the minimum requirement to join us." She nodded and continued to watch Felix's car that was speeding almost reach the volcano's tunnels. "This is a moment of fate for this game, darling, landlord. Is he going to pick the right tunnel or chooses the wrong one?" Marlion completely ignored the other players after Felix's last witty display. Now the entire audience already started focusing only on Felix, and he must abide by their wishes and showcase his face on the large screen. With Felix's hoodie that only showed darkness, this added extra bonus points on Felix's entire persona. The majority of the crowd loved the mysterious vibe he was emitting. Plus, with his seemingly endless poison inducements, this only further enhanced that feeling. "How many did he use so far?" a random spectator asked. "He currently used 4 unique inducements. White for sleepiness, acid green for corrosion, light yellow for paralyzes, and finally red for hallucination, I assume." The one near him answered his question while reading from a small note. "I can't wait to see other ones. Sigh, truly legendary bloodlines are on their own league. No shit, epic rank tier 1 can be sold for 5 million, meanwhile legendary rank can reach even 200 million for just tier 1. And even then, you can only get them from renowned auctions houses." The spectators conversed and argued with each other out loud with varied emotions, adoration, envy, greed, and indifference. The only unarguable idea was that Felix's bloodline was legendary. The mere thought that it could be above never crossed their minds. At the end of the day, legendary rank beasts were at the peak of rarity and potential without questions asked. This had been a dead debate since long ago. This was the reason Felix never cared or bothered about hiding his bloodline abilities. Since even if he used tens of inducements, no one would question him on it. The only thing that must be hidden no matter what was the number of abilities he owned. After all, if he used 6 active abilities while being in the bronze and silver, it signified only 2 things: either the system was bugged and a peak 6th stage bloodliner somehow managed to sneak inside, or Felix had a way to awaken more abilities while being at the bottom of integration. That's what was going to create true chaos. As humans at the top of the pyramid would use everything they had in their possession to find his identity in the real world, or at least harass anyone who used the same abilities as he had. Before long, they would find him in real life and invite him for a cup of tea. Felix tapped on his wheel with his fingers while humming a tune softly. From time to time he glanced at the ranking and the eliminated players list that was on his car's dashboard. Oh, another one eliminated at the front. A bit surprised, he exclaimed after seeing his rank bump up to 5th while the player base got lowered from 20 to 19. Let's see who the lucky one is. He clicked on the eliminated list and all the names who died were displayed in front of him. New. Mystifying beauty, how can you die before I play with you? Felix lightly punched his wheel in vexation after seeing the busted chick he groped in the hall gets eliminated. Read lat stchpters on n/v/l/b.i.cm. Oh well, we were not fated. His vexation was quickly replaced with focus after finally reaching the tunnels leading to the volcanoes. Lady Luck, I never begged you for anything. But please just for once show me the way. Felix prayed piously while driving through a tunnel he chose randomly. After a while, Felix's curses resounded in the tunnel. F***CKU. I will never beg from you again. He huffed in anger after seeing a dead end in the one he chose. Without wasting any more time, he made a sharp turn, leaving the tunnel and drifting into the second one to his right. Thankfully, the hateful lava he saw before was not there, as only a wide mouth showing crimson sky was unveiled as soon as he stepped inside the tunnel. Felix immediately accelerated while spinning his hover car to nullify some air resistance. He didn't like using this technique as it gave him motion sickness, and he couldn't afford to have one next to other players. A few seconds later, his car rushed out of the volcano mouth into an orange cloud. It kept going up and up until it lost its momentum. Then, it dropped rapidly towards the lave sea. Gravity was pulling it down to its rightful height, which was 100 meters above the surface. Felix did not let this free drop go to waste, as he directed his car towards the red desert and accelerated even further while dropping. Boom! The sound barrier was broken, as Felix's car's speed exceeded the speed of sound. But he remained composed even when he was nosediving towards the raging lava sea with that kind of speed. He squinted his eyes in focus while glancing from time to time at the meterage in his car's dashboard to see his altitude. 5400, 4700 m, 3988 m, 2680 m, 1500 m. Now! Felix bit his lip as hard as he could while pulling the wheel to himself and simultaneously pushing the brakes to the limit. His car kept trying to uplift itself to be vertical to the sea. 500 m, 300, 220, 90 m. Phew! Felix's car glided exactly 90 meters above the lava sea and zoomed with at least triple the normal speed. Felix let go of his bottom lip and gave a pleased smirk that sent the spectators wild after seeing such a risky maneuver that no one before attempted to do. Felix just kept giving and giving. There wasn't a single boring moment with him even when he was flying alone. Well, Felix did this dangerous movement not to entertain them but to catch up to the front runners. And it was totally worth it, as Felix finally saw the tail of 2 cars in front of him. Heh, another partnership? He grinned, don't mind me breaking your honeymoon. Even though he said so, he did not rush into them but kept his distance and observed silently their cars, like a predator waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. It seems that both of them have everything tight shut. He drove with one hand while having the other under his chin. He frowned slightly, This is going to be a tough one. Felix knew that this time he wouldn't be able to use his hallucination bomb to incite a battle between them. Or any poison in that case, as the windows, the only possible entries, were closed. Is that really my only way to sneak my poison in? He pondered while examining his car interior for any loophole he could use. If he found one in his car, there was a high chance other cars would have it as well. Since the majority of players focused on modifying their exterior heavily while leaving the interior standard with few tweaks here and there. He touched the holes of the launchers inside and wondered, if I took advantage of that split second where launchers open up to fire, I might be able to pull it off. Helpless, he sighed and decided to go with this risky plan. There was no other option on the table besides so. He could have just accelerated and passed them. But he would be a fool to leave this predatory position and switch to prey just to be slightly ahead. What's even worse was that he would get sandwiched by 2 at front and 2 at the back. God knows if they would ally together and get rid of him. So the only option was to eliminate those 2 and do so as clean as possible without entering a messy fight with them. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience. Please click #47540599020116841 for visiting. After finalizing the plan one last time, Felix accelerated towards the rightmost car, not caring anymore if they noticed him. Mississippi Arctic Heart, someone is catching up to us. What's the plan? A man, who had one extra ear at the back of his head, asked with a laid-back attitude. He noticed from his back mirror, Felix's car rushing towards him. Let's do our usual pincer strategy. A beautiful mature woman with glossy icy blue lips responded in a calm manner. The long one, or the short one? He asked. Let's go for the long one. She clarified, I saw him earlier spewing white poisonous from his car, leaving a long trail. We can't go behind him if he used that. All right, you take care of the back since he is coming after me. He ordered. I told you to no order me around Sonar. She refused to obey to his order. Can you please take care of the back? Sonar requested while scratching his third ear in irritation. Much better. She gave a mild smile and changed her direction to the left. She then drove away from her partner. Felix laid his eyes on her car for a few seconds and ignored her. It seemed like she was going to make a wide encircling without getting seen by him. She wanted to strike when he least expected. But first, she needed to get out of his sight for a while. Planning to sandwich me? He snickered while creating 2 pistachio green bombs with a snap of a finger. Then, he put them on the 2 front launcher's tubes and left them there without firing. However, the same thing didn't apply for Sonar, as his back launcher, that appeared like a lion's mouth, fired a continuous stream of sound waves in the shape of a circle towards Felix. Woo! King hell. Felix reflexively dodged to the right, but still, his front glass window got cracked slightly after it got touched by the corner of the sound wave. He never expected that his prey was a sound element user. Not bad, but for how long can you dodge? Sonar chuckled while having 2 silver metal tubes in front of his mouth. One tube was connected to his front launcher while the other to the back launcher. Strangely, both of them resembled a lion having its jaw wide open. Dodge this. He put his mouth on the tube connected to the back launcher and roared at the top of his voice. Roo-har! Multiple sound waves in the shape of a lion's jaw were projected from the launcher. Felix, who had his finger on the fire button, immediately pushed it, firing his bombs at the back launcher. He was waiting with narrowed eyes just for that moment. Although he was focusing on it, he didn't forget to dodge the approaching lion's jaws. Poof, poof! One bomb exploded exactly near the launcher's hole while the other exploded on the back window. Sonar laughed in a mocking manner at this useless attack. But, after seeing that his assaults were also not doing well, he slapped his wheel in irritation. Whatever, I just need to hold him until Arctic Heart pincer him. Again, he put his mouth on the metal tube and took a deep breath with his mouth. He had absolutely no idea that his launcher had just been contaminated with a pistachio green mist. Or what remained of it at very least. And so, he inhaled a large whiff of the nastiest smell he had ever been exposed to in his life. Nothing came even close to what his mouth had just experienced. Immediately after tasting it and also smelling it, he recoiled away from the tube while clutching his neck tightly, holding himself from vomiting in disgust. He felt like he just ate a mixture of multiple different feces all at once. The taste just kept on assaulting his gag reflex over and over again. In the end, he couldn't handle it anymore and vomited everything out, like a water hose. Read the latest stories novilbin.com. Blaya. His puke was thrown all over the wheel and the frontal window of his car, blocking his vision. After seeing what he had done, he sat frozen in his place, dumbstruck about the entire situation. He had no clue how things led to this point. Yet before he could manage to regain his wits, the disgusting sight and smell of his vomit covering the interior of his car assaulted his gag reflex again. But this time, he learned his lesson. He quickly opened the window and put his head outside, puking his guts out. You should not have done that. Felix laughed and pressed the fire button. Poof, poof. 2 bombs exploded on Sonar's head, one light yellow and the other acid green. The usual torturous combo. It was clear he was planning for this to happen. However, he wasn't done yet, as he threw with his hand another acid bomb on the car's dashboard. It wasn't hard for Felix to catch up while flying with triple Sonar's car speed. Arg! My face is melting. Sonar didn't even bother about the interior of his car that was getting corroded, as he kept screaming his anguish in his mind. At least his harrowing experience was being shared with his car, as it kept making noises and warning sounds each time an important part was fried. SSSSSS. Marlion and the audience all drew a deep breath after seeing this horrendous sight. Just the idea of having your face getting melted while being paralyzed sent cold shivers in their back. Before, they only saw Guard of Logic's fate in a replay on the large screen. But now, they were watching everything live close to their faces. Especially the spectators who bought the omnipotent vision. They could see everything spot on, no matter how far the distance. Thus, Sonar's hideous face, akin to walking outside of a horror movie, was literally only half a meter away from them. Landlord ways of eliminating are truly ruthless and brutal. But that's what we like to see. Marlion commentated with vicious smiles planted on his cheeks. His claim was supported by the spectators who cheered and chanted Landlord's name thunderously. This was what they paid to see, bloody and brutal fights. Not drama between players, and Felix fits exactly their favorite type of player. Was the first bombs he used were new ones? Both of them were green like his acid bomb. A spectator asked. Are you color blind? They are clearly light green. Not to mention its different inducement. Yeah, what the hell was that? Can smelly bombs even count as poison anymore? Anything that can affect the body in a harmful way when absorbed can be called poison. So yes, that smelly bomb is also poison, since it harms the body functions greatly, as you have seen. A blue goblin, wearing a black tuxedo, explained in a polite manner. Damn, I bet my fart is poisonous then. Don't flatter yourself. The blue goblin smiled and said, if it can't get a negative reaction from the brain. Chi, tshchhhh. Fart noises. OHF *CK. What did you eat? Blarick. Blaff, vomit noises. Run. Save yourselves. My eyes are tearing up from the smell. Run. His fart is a tear gas. Stop pushing me. I am gonna fall. The blue goblin kept trying to wiggle himself out from the crowd with a constipated expression on his face. His height didn't reach even their thighs, thus he was getting kneed in the face constantly by the escaping crowd. No one cared about him, as their brain had only one thought, and that was to run as far as possible from a man who had an innocent look on his face and a tail attached to his back, resembling skunk tail. The F***er was using a skunk bloodline and still dared to fart in the middle of the crowd. Thud. Finally not able to handle getting kneed in the face by the escaping mob, the blue goblin fell right into one of the pools of vomit released in the area. Just as he tried to lift his head, he was stamped upon, making his face get planted in the vomit right back. This time some pieces got inside his mouth. Still taste better than my ex-wife cooking. He murmured to himself subconsciously as tasted them. Still, his watery eyes couldn't hide the fact that he felt wronged about the entire situation. If he knew that his explanation was going to lead to this result, he would have kept his mouth shut. Alas, he could only wipe the vomit from his aggrieved face and go look for another seat away from that humanoid catastrophe. This mini chaos that had just happened was gone unnoticed by Marlion and the rest of the spectators, as their focus was completely drawn to a battle happening way behind Felix's car. Meanwhile, Felix did not speed away after dealing with Sonar, but slowed his speed and waited for Arctic Heart to catch up. However, it never happened. Speechless, he kept glancing at his back mirror from time to time, not knowing how to react to her tardiness. Did she lose her direction or what? He mused. After seeing that no one was chasing him even after waiting for a while, he stopped caring about her and decided to check on the current rank. What the F***ck? Immediately after seeing his current rank, he exclaimed in disbelief. How did I jump straight from 5th to 2nd? He tapped on the elimination list and read the newly eliminated players. Soon he found 4 added players to the list: Sonar, Arctic Heart, Holy Fist, and Easy Wind. Did Arctic Heart get intercepted by others? He wondered in befuddlement while glancing at his back mirror. Need to speed up, it seems like they are catching up. Without further ado, he pushed the pedal to the limit and rushed forward. He never expected that other players were already this near to his position. Well, to be fair, he was hindered on many occasions on his path. Such as the fact he chose the wrong volcano's tunnel. Plus, he slowed his speed greatly during the time he was dealing with that alliance. It was only natural that players would start to catch up to him, just like he caught up to frontrunners. But still, after Sonar and Artichart death, I should be 3rd rank. He glanced at Easy Wind and Holy Fist and reasoned, it seems a fight happened between the 1st and 2nd. He grinned, I bet Easy Wind was the one who died ahead of me. He figured so from the way Easy Wind didn't partner with anyone in the game hall. So he must have fought and lost his battle. Hopefully, he did some substantial damage to the 1st ranker. 2 hours into the race. Wobbly Web is done for. He really should not have provoked an alliance. Marlion commentated on Wobbly Web's car that was being pounded by different abilities in the middle of 4 cars. Even in such a hopeless situation, Wobbly Web was trying his best to free himself from their encirclement. However, his Silk Element abilities were not helping him that much. Every time he threw his webs connecting to a car, they get immediately either sliced by wind or engulfed in flames. The players were playing like a solid team, using their abilities to help each other out. Their cooperation was making Wobbly Web's life hell and car into almost resembling a pile of junk. Bam! Boom! In the end, his car exploded once and for all after its engine got blasted by 3 spears made of flames. Sigh, he could have played it smarter. But he was too anxious to pass them. A spectator shook his head at this sight. Can you blame him? This is the last lap already, if not now then when? That's not an excuse to throw your life like that. He could have obtained a mystery box first then attack them, or simply don't do it and give up on the race. F.U.C.K.I.N.G moron, even landlord is struggling to catch up to first ranker, don't even mention him. True, I am watching him right now. He is still quite distant from absolute vision. If he kept at this pace, he is doomed. The audience switched their vision to Felix, wanting to recheck on him. Since the moment he began flying solo without a single soul in front of him or behind him, everyone lost interest and focused on other battles happening at the back. The current 4 players alliance that just eliminated Webley Webb were their favorites to watch. At least 7 players were killed by them only. Meanwhile, Felix began to feel a little bit anxious after not seeing the tail of first ranker even after driving for a couple of hours. Where did this F***er go? This is the last lap and I still didn't even glimpse at his shadow. Felix clutched the wheel tightly while driving recklessly through the underground. He almost got hit a couple of times by some lava pillars with the way he was driving. But he didn't slow down even a bit, as he couldn't afford to anymore. After a while, he reached the tunnels leading to the volcano's mouths and chose one randomly while holding his breath. Thank God! Felix sighed in relief after seeing the beautiful crimson sky. Then he did the same technique as before to get a better thrust during his climbing. Whoosh! His car rushed through the volcano's mouth spinning like a bullet. However, this time Felix didn't stop spinning as he decided to keep doing it, to push the free-fall momentum even further. He wanted to obtain the best possible speed burst when his car glides vertically above the lava sea. And so, under the dumbfounded eyes of Marlion and the spectators, both on live stream and the stadiums, Felix's car span as it dropped like it was drilling the air itself. Boom! The sound barrier was broken even faster than before, but this time, Felix cannot rely on the meterage to see his altitude as he closed his eyes to reduce the motion sickness that would follow after he glides. He was completely relying on his instincts to pull this off. 6800 m, 5870, 4500, 3300 m. Pull! Pull now! The audience yelled out loud with hands in front of their mouths. Yet, their voices went hoarse and Felix still didn't touch his spinning wheel at all. 2900 m, 1403 m. Pull already, goddammit! Marlion shouted as well with the audience. He didn't want Felix to die anticlimactic death like this. But, during a fight for the championship. As that would be an epic ending for the game. Now! Felix's closed eyes suddenly snapped open as he clutched the steering wheel tightly to stop the spinning. Thankfully, that was easy for him due to his super strength. Immediately after stopping the car spinning, he pulled the wheel towards him while simultaneously pushing the brake pedal to the limit. His calm eyes kept staring at the sea of lava that was merely a couple of 100 meters away from him, akin to staring right in the Grim Reaper's eyes. Nevertheless, that didn't faze him at all, as he kept murmuring gently, "Come on girl, you can do it." Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47544070695868552 for visiting. Do ITUSL*T? Scared shitless, he roared one last time as his car whizzed vertically a few meters above the sea. He wanted to keep his calm and composed image through the end, but the lava sea was so close he almost peed his pants. That was truly a close shave. He did it! He actually pulled it off! Marlion and the spectators completely went bonkers after seeing Felix's car flying with unprecedented speed towards absolute vision, who had no idea that a predator was catching up to him rapidly. EAD new chapter S on no/v/e/ln.com. Holy, that was a stressful experience. a man said while wiping his sweaty forehead with his sleeve. My heart was about to leap out of my chest. Touch it. A cute female said absent-mindedly next to him. Sister, are you sure about it? He asked. F***ck, if you don't want to, let others do it. Another man jumped inside their conversation. Go to the side, she asked me. F***ck off, you already wasted your chance. Can't I ask for permission like gentlemen? The other spectators near those two pulled them away from each other. They were truly on the verge of ripping each other throats. It was clear that they wanted to vent the stress that Felix's dangerous maneuver put them through. Meanwhile, Felix rubbed his temples gently after a massive headache assaulted him immediately as he relaxed. Even so, a wide grin was on his face as he stared at the tail of Absolute Vision's car. Let's see if luck is going to help you this time. Felix truly believed that the only reason why Absolute Vision was in the first rank was because of his luck. After all, his car placement was at the front row during the starting zone. Plus, with his wide AoE blindness, he managed to break out of the pack easily. When they were still grouped in a pack, Felix saw a pitch-black domain that spanned 40 meters, put everyone near his car in utter darkness. Some cars escaped outside the domain safely while others weren't so lucky. Those 3 players from before were the ones who died in it. Meanwhile, Felix had eliminated a whopping 7 players while still being in the worst possible placement. Not mentioning the 2 times he failed to find the exit tunnel during his first and second lap. So in comparison, Absolute Vision's racing was honestly a smooth journey. But that would soon change, as the serpent had caught up to him, and it's hungry for his blood after everything it had gone through to catch up. How did someone catch up to me? Absolute Vision didn't even turn his head or glance at the mirror to see Felix's car approaching him with 5 times his current speed. And what the hell is that speed? He must be cheating. He immediately called for the Queen AI to report him. Queen, I found a cheater. He said. ID name? She asked. Don't know, but his SG tag is Landlord. He replied. A second later, she responded monotonously, no signs of cheating has been found. Please don't make false reports anymore, otherwise, your account will be blocked for 15 days. This is your first warning. Absolute Vision neither had guts nor the time to lash at her, as Felix had almost reached him. So he focused on dealing with him first, then questioned Marlion later over that abnormal speed. Speechless, Felix inspected the smooth-looking black car that had neither windows nor launchers. The entire vehicle resembled the head of a pencil, sharp, pointy, and black. No wonder this bastard was so fast. He didn't modify his offense at all. Felix had a bad feeling about this. After all, to not have launchers in a car, it meant only 2 things: either he was a melee form fighter like Ultra Craze or a mental type fighter. And it was clear in this case that Absolute Vision was a mental type user. The worst matchup Felix could hope for. Simply because the mental type users just needed to hide in a fortified box and abuse others outside without being endangered at any point. This signified that Felix's abilities were absolutely useless against this kind of opponent. After all, how the hell was his poison supposed to be absorbed when there was not a single opening in that car? The worst part about all of this was the fact that Felix had to eliminate him now before his speed buff gets reduced. Although with Felix's current speed he could totally avoid fighting him and simply rush ahead. He understood that wasn't a real viable plan. Let's say he surpassed him, then what? His speed buff was not infinite. At one point, his car would start slowing down until it gets returned to its natural maximum speed. At that moment, if he didn't already reach the finish line, he would easily get bypassed by Absolute Vision. At the end of the day, who could contest in speed with that abnormal-looking car that was modified to mitigate as much wind resistance as possible? Thus, Felix had to fight and make sure Absolute Vision fight back. He only had a small window of time, and he must use it efficiently to get rid of Absolute Vision here and now. Before long, Felix and Absolute Vision only had 100 meters distance between them, and it kept decreasing quickly until it was merely 60 meters separating them. An optimal distance for Felix to launch his attacks. "Let's fire 2 bombs to test the water," he said while creating 2 acid bombs. He chose this inducement with high hopes that it manages to corrode Absolute Vision's car. He may not have windows or launchers, but Felix's acid inducement still could corrode alloys, just like it did to Ultra Craze Chain. Without further ado, he put them in the launchers and fired them at Vision's car. He held his breath with expectations written all over his face. Poof, poof. Too bad, his hopes were dashed the moment he saw Vision's car shrugging the mist off like it was nothing. It just kept flying straight, totally ignoring his attacks, akin to his crush ignoring his greeting in public. "This bastard is baiting me to approach even closer." Felix quickly figured out the cause of Vision's lackle.u.s.ter response. It was clear that Vision's mental abilities range was quite shorter than the distance between them. Although he knew so, Felix still didn't slow down his speed, as the moment he did, he would be left behind forever. So, he could only obediently enter Vision's attacking radius while thinking of a new plan to get him out of this shithole. 50m, 40m, 20m. Tempo blindness. The moment Vision noticed that Felix had stepped inside his attacking range, he activated his AoE blindness ability. A sudden wave of darkness was released from his vehicle. It kept on expanding and expanding until everything inside a 40-meter diameter was hidden behind a dark curtain. The ability was dashing and flamboyant all right. But, did it have any effect? Nope. Absolutely nothing changed, as Felix's car just kept speeding forward unhindered. What a retard. "So what if you blinded me? I can just activate autopilot and chill until the duration ends," Felix thought while laughing in ridicule. Although he couldn't see even his fingers inside the curtain of darkness, he remained unfazed. He knew that those types of large AoE abilities consumed a massive amount of energy each second they were active. Hence, Vision would turn it off sooner or later after he notices that his attack was useless. It seems impossible to win this fight without breaching a hole in his car. I guess I am only left with that option. He pondered quietly in the darkness. It appeared that the blindness did more good than bad, as Felix's thoughts were clearer and more cohesive. "Queen, call Absolute Vision please," he requested. The Queen quickly did as instructed. Who is calling me now?" Vision wondered in confusion and asked Queen for the ID of the caller. "Sir, it's landlord, should I accept?" she asked. "Do it, what's there to worry about?" he sneered. Click new N0vel chapters are published on n0v/e/lbin co/m. Hello, dear Mr. Vision. Can you please answer just one question of mine and I will leave you in peace? Felix's baffled voice resounded in the car. "Please ask away, Sir Landlord." Vision gentle persona that he used in the game hall swiftly resurfaced. "How the hell are you not dead with this trashy ability?" Felix hastily added another taunt before the connection gets cut off. "Trust me, I had no idea how to deal with you before, but after you blinded me, I was suddenly enlightened. So I called to ask and also deliver my thanks. Sir Landlord, you only said this because there was no obstacle ahead of us. If we were in the canyon you wouldn't even have time to call me." Vision replied as politely as possible, trying his best to keep his nerves in check. Ha ha ha, so your ability is only useful in canyons? And you have the nerve to brag about it. Felix yawned in boredom and sent him off with one last taunt. I feel bad for the audience who expected an epic fight between us. But it is what it is. He then cut off the connection between them abruptly, leaving the gentle-looking Vision with an unsightly expression. He wanted to retort, but the bastard left as sudden as he appeared. Kerr asked for it. He snapped his finger, deactivating his tempo blindness. Then, he gently removed the white bandage on his eyes, exposing two dark eyes without eyelids, eyelashes, and weirdly no pupils. They just showed pitch-black darkness, resembling a moonless night. The audience, who were laughing at Vision just a while ago, instantly gasped at his weird-looking eyes. Don't tell me that's a mutation from a bloodline. I believe that's a mutation from the epic Tier 1 Deep Abyss bat. One of the few good mutations of that beast, as your vision might be blinded, but you instantly obtain an echolocation ability. So it is a trade between vision and enhanced hearing? A worthwhile trade, honestly, since echolocation allows you to visualize everything in a 200-meter diameter. Indeed, though he quite looks ugly with those kinds of eyes. No wonder he bandaged them. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47548013224189012 for visiting. Everyone got speechless after hearing a teenage girl say this. But they couldn't help but agree with her somehow. Fans had been always this shallow. Even Felix, if he showed them an ugly face under his hoodie, they would instantly shun him and focus on others. No matter how one's unique abilities were, no one would want to look at your ugly face while casting them. Just like Vision now, who activated his peak ability, thinking that he looked dashing. But in reality, the audience only gave him expressionless looks. Felix knew that after his taunts, Vision would lose his shit and uses his best ability. But that was exactly his aim, for Vision to use his peak ability and waste all of his energy, or at least the majority of it, while doing so. Come on, throw everything out. Calm and collected, he gripped the wheel tightly with both of his hands while wearing a belt that was connected with a metallic chain. Meanwhile, the chain was linked to a hard grip that was affixed to the door of the car. He was doing nothing but bracing himself for the impact. Abyssal screech. Cree. A sudden ear-piercing screech resonated continuously in the area. It was so loud, the wind kept vibrating each time the sound wave passed by. Crack! All of Felix's car windows started to crack each time they got hit by the sound wave. Sadly, it just kept on coming and coming non-stop until they couldn't handle it. Shatter! Pieces of the glass were hurled everywhere like sharp daggers, scratching Felix all over. Thank God the majority of the pieces were hurled outside of the car, otherwise, the interior would have been razored. Uncaring about his bleeding flesh wounds, Felix kept covering his ears with his hands while gritting his teeth in agony. He felt like his eardrums were about to snap at any moment. Yet, he could do nothing to defend against it or stop it. He just kept waiting until the screeching end. After a couple of seconds, the volume of the screech got reduced bit by bit until silence regained in the area yet again. Silence? I might have gone deaf. Nonchalant, Felix touched his bloodied ears while mouthing off those words. Although he couldn't hear anything, not even his voice, he still smirked and licked his lips while gazing at the black car that he just surpassed by few meters. Now that you are out of gas, it's my turn. Felix unbelted himself and stood up above his seat. He then crawled outside of the broken frontal window and crouched on his car hood with that belt around his waist. Whoosh! The wind kept assaulting him, trying to throw off, but Felix's fingers were dug deep on the car's hood, not letting him even budge. Dumbstruck, the spectators stared at this scene with mouth agape, not daring to believe what their eyes were feeding them. Landlord, an elemental range user, was also a melee fighter. They had no idea what they were watching anymore. But just the mere sight of Felix crouching like that with a confident smirk and ears dripping blood sent shivers of excitement in their spine over the upcoming epic fight. Felix bent his legs with a hunched back and fingers spread apart, gripping the hood like his life was dependent on it. His position somewhat resembled Spider-Man's one in the movies. The only difference was that Felix was applying as much force as possible on his bent knees until the hood couldn't take it anymore and deformed under his force. He took a deep breath while squinting his eyes in focus, then, whoosh! He jumped straight ahead of Vision's car by a few meters, so he could land exactly on its roof. It was easier than it looked since Felix brought his car as close as possible. There were only 5 meters or so between them. He must have passed out of my ability. That should teach him a lesson, Vision said while gasping for breath like he just ran a marathon. His hands kept shaking as he tried to re-bandage his eyes back. Till now, no one knew why he even exposed his ugly eyes if he was simply going to screech from his mouth. The spectators speechlessly watched him focusing on bandage his eyes, not paying attention to Felix, who was dropping down on him from above. Bang! Vision's car shook and dove slightly down after Felix successfully landed on the roof. Thankfully, he landed on his stomach, making it easier for him to get a tight grip on the dark alloy. His image might not have looked as dashing as landing on his feet, but Felix valued his life more than to mind about such useless details. The cars were literally on the border of flying at the speed of sound. If Felix's body wasn't inhuman, he would have been slapped like a fly by the wind the moment he got out of his car. Shocked and horrified, Vision dropped the bandage under his seat after he noticed Felix on top of his car, lying down with his feet and one hand dug deep in his alloy. But what scared him the most was the other hand that was clutched as a fist. Bam! Vision lowered his head in fear after seeing his most prized car defenses get easily bent into a shape of a fist from one strike. He didn't dare imagine his fate if that punch landed on him. He quickly took control of the wheel and started driving randomly, going left, right, horizontally, and even added some spins. Yet nothing managed to throw Felix off. His grip was too tight. The only thing that remained constant through all of this was the sound of Felix's punches striking the roof every chance he got. My only solution is to drive away from his car. Absolute Vision quickly decided to slow his car's speed and change direction. He wanted to get as far as possible from Felix's car, so the chain that was around his waist get tugged and pull him away. That's a good strategy by Vision. But our dear landlord already anticipated it and modified the autopilot system to keep a close distance to his body. Marlion commentated over the scene with his head shaking slightly. He knew that Vision was F***cad without any way to retaliate. This was the fate of every mental type fighter. Getting smashed to paste by a melee form fighter if they got close to them. After only 3 strikes at the same spot, Felix finally managed to punch open a hole on the roof. His behemoth strength made the spectators wonder if he was a beast wearing human skin. Hello there. Felix greeted the terrified Absolute Vision with a wide grin from the hole. He then gripped the 2 sides of the small hole and spread it open to allow his arm to pass through. Please stop, I surrender. You can win the race, I won't bother you anymore. Vision begged for mercy after noticing Felix's arm heading towards his head. His begging would have sounded a bit more sincere if he wasn't trying to remove his seatbelt. He clearly wanted to hide under his seat. Too bad, Felix heard jack shit as he was currently deaf. And even if he wasn't, he still would finish him off. After all, there was no surrender in the games. The moment it started there were only 3 options: win, die, or survive after heavy injury. So how could he trust his word? Felix knows for a fact that the moment he accepted Vision's surrender, he would instantly get bit in the ass by him later. It happened too many times in the games, it became the norm. Don't worry, I will make it quick. Felix smiled warmly while clasping Vision's head with one hand. Vision latched into Felix's hand, trying to remove his steel-like fingers. But his pity strength couldn't do much. Please don't kill me. Please. He just carried on begging for mercy while wailing out loud, uncaring about his image. Unfortunately, Felix heard none of it as he tightened his grip, using all of his strength. Pop! Absolute Vision's head immediately exploded akin to a watermelon hit by a baseball bat. Blood, flesh, eyes, and even brain juices were projected everywhere, painting the car with red color. Some pieces even landed on Felix's face. Even then, he still had that warm smile on his face. Marlion and spectators went quiet for a second at this barbaric scene. Then, out of nowhere, the stadium rambled with booming noises. Screams, cheers, and shouts over a perfect brutal climax that they wished for. As expected from Landlord. Not a hint of hesitation as he brutally popped someone's brains out. Ecstatic, Marlion jumped on top of his commentary table with spits flying from his right mouth over the microphone. He pointed at the large screen and the scene of Vision's head popping kept on repeating over and over again. Pop, pop, pop. The sound of the skull being crushed resonated each second in the stadium, hyping it even further. He is the one. I will be the #1 fan for Landlord. I will watch all of his games, and document everything he does. A good-looking boy with glasses on decided out loud while clapping his hands zealously. I will create his fan club. A player of this caliber must not remain unknown. A beautiful mature woman said with adoration in her eyes. Invite me in. Me too. Don't forget me. I will leave my current fan club and swear eternal loyalty to Landlord. A man with a bushy orange beard swore as he took hidden peeks at the mature woman. Big brother, you said that as well before you joined Hakami Club. A cute-looking girl said with an embarrassed expression while pulling his shirt. That was merely a passing remark. But now I mean it for real. But, you said that as well before. She murmured softly, not wanting to humiliate her brother anymore after seeing the weird looks others were giving them. However, soon the spectators ignored them and focused on Felix, who was being pulled by the chain into the door of the car. The wind washed his face from those flesh pieces. Felix removed the chain and jumped inside his car from the broken window. He then belted himself and took control of the wheel. Discover new chapters at novelby.co. Activate manual driving. He ordered. Instantly, the red light inside the car turned green for a split second before turning off. Felix gripped the wheel and accelerated as fast as possible towards the red desert. He couldn't let his guard down just because he was currently the first ranker. After all, they were driving in different directions after Vision tried to throw him away. This delayed him immensely. Not to mention his broken windows were going to reduce his speed by a large margin due to wind resistance. Forget about keeping his speed buff, Felix was worried that his car wouldn't even be able to reach its maximum natural speed. One should never forget that the player or the players who eliminated Arctic Heart were always behind his back. Felix might have put a significant distance between them by having 5 times their normal speed. But now, after his fight and car's current condition, they were catching up rapidly. After flying solo for 10 minutes, Felix sighed in relief after finally spotting the Crimson Desert at the shore of the lava sea. However, the moment he glanced at his back mirror, he noticed 4 tiny dark dots flying near each other. They kept getting larger and larger in his vision, entailing that their speed was way faster than his. This going to get ugly. Without sounding a single complaint, Felix snapped his finger, creating 2 white bombs. He put them in the back launcher's tubes and kept them in it for now. His focus was entirely on two things: reaching the finish line first and blocking the F***ers from robbing him of his hard-earned victory. He kept glancing at his back mirror periodically to get a better feel for the distance separating them. Currently, he believed that at least 10 kilometers was between them. It might sound like a lot, but he knew that this distance could be traveled in 3 minutes or so. However, the good news was that the finish line wasn't far from the lava seashore. Felix believed if this chase carried on like this, by the time they get within 100 meters away from him, he would be either beyond the finish line or about to. The only variable to this was the blue boxes on the track that he kept ignoring. However, Felix was quite confident that those players would ignore them as well. Simply because, the moment one of them decided to greed for a box, the others would do their best to hinder him. Thus, their thin alliance would break in a heartbeat. After all, no one knows if the one who obtained the box gets an ability that allowed him to eliminate them instead of sprinting towards the finish line. They were positive that he would use it to kill them for free points instead of focusing on catching up with Felix. So to avoid all of this, they continued ignoring the boxes, while speeding as fast as possible. Shortly after, Felix entered the red desert and glimpsed at the finish line that was on the horizon. He looked behind him and saw his pursuers were getting closer and closer. 1000 m, 755 m, 541 m, 350 m. They got so close to him, he was able to see from the back mirror their clear desperation and yearning for the championship written all over their faces. "Not today, boys." Felix smirked and clicked fire. Poof, poof. The white bombs exploded in front of their cars, leaving a cloud of mist drifting in the air. Before they could even laugh at his idiotic attempt of blocking them, they saw 2 more bombs fired at them, then 2 more, and 2 more. They just kept coming and coming like they were being fired by a machine gun. Yet that wasn't all, as Felix snapped his finger, forcing a white mist out of his pores. The aura kept expanding until his car was hidden entirely. But, what made those players flinch was the long poisonous white trail that was being left behind. This combination of abilities forced them to give up on staying behind Felix, as their vision was totally blocked, not allowing them to even aim properly their abilities. Poof! Poof! Bombs with all kinds of colors were continuously hurled from inside the white cloud. All of the inducements that Felix showed so far were thrown behind his back recklessly. He didn't care one bit about his energy anymore. He saved it just for moments like those. King hell. I can't see shit. A bald-headed player cursed while trying to clear the white mist from his front window. He thought before that getting hit by them was useless, as they don't deal any damage. However, he regretted the moment he was touched by one. He literally felt like he was driving a ship through a foggy sea, nothing could be seen. Not even his allies. Felix's long poisonous tail made it just worse. CK it. Not able to take it anymore, he pointed a finger in the air and a sudden flame ignited on his fingertip. The flame grew from a candle-like flame into a golden pointy spear. He put it a long platform to his right and clicked fire. The spear was launched from the center of the car bumper, specifically from a small hidden hole. Phew! Bam! The sound of the familiar collision made the baldly feeling excited. Just as he created another spear and put it on the platform, his car smashed into a thick wall made of brown clay, making his excited face get smacked into the wheel. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience. Please click #475646156156887138872 for visiting. Crack! His nose wasn't spared by the abrupt collision, as it got deformed in a weird shape. You ruined everything, you bastard. Beyond livid, a brunette girl screamed with bloodshot eyes. She quickly switched her vision from the baldy, who kept her chances to win without realizing it, to Felix's car that was about to enter the finish line. Only a couple 100 meters were left before he crossed it. As for her, she was the closest to his car. Well, that was before she was hit by that Baldy spear. She could have reached Felix and even surpassed him, but the F***er spear unlucky hit her left thruster, damaging it. Her speed was getting slowed gradually until the last shimmer of hope in her eyes was dashed. Phew, phew. Phew, phew. Relieved, Felix pumped his fist in the air for a split second the moment he passed through the black and white strips. He was quickly followed by 2 other cars, then finally the sulky brunette's car. 1 game in the bag, 3 more to go. He smiled while massaging his tired shoulders over everything that happened during this tough race. It truly deserved the name of Death Race. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to your champion. Marlion clutched the mic with both of his hands and brought it right between his mouths. He took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his voice, "Landlord." He timed so well that the moment he screamed the name, Felix dashed right through the finish line. The spectators didn't wait for him to tell them to, as they were already cheering and clapping until their voices cracked and hands turned bright red. Yet, none of them paused for even a second to take a break. They were giving Felix the standing ovation he deserved after showing them a spectacular game that went beyond their expectations. He flew solo from the moment the game started until it ended. He fought and eliminated any player, partnership, and alliance that was blocking his path. In their eyes, he might be a newbie, but he gave them a performance that wasn't accessible by their ticket price. Heck, they paid nearly 50 SC for normal seating, yet they watched a peak-tier gold rank performance that needed at least at bare 1,000 SC per ticket. They couldn't wait until they go back to their friends, forums, groups, and cliques to brag about this marvelous evening. Just the thought of it made them feel twofold the excitement. Landlord! 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 Felix's name kept being chanted periodically each second, creating a wave of ardor through the entire stadium. High above in the VIP rooms, the 2 elders clapped their hands as well with satisfying smiles over Felix's performance. Never thought he would have unlocked even a super strength passive with such a massive boost. The elder rubbed his beard and added with intrigue, "I am getting more interested in the beast bloodline he is using. Did you notice? He never used his peak ability at all during the race." The elderly woman said. "True, the only thing he used so far is 2 active abilities and 1 passive. It's too hard to judge his integration based on what he showed." He smiled, "But after we rope him, we can question him later on the details of his bloodline and his integration." "Are you going to make a move now?" she asked. "No, let's wait a day or 2 to see what other clans will offer him." He shook his head. "All right, should we increase the incitement offer just in case?" she suggested. "No, the cleanse potion is enough to rope him unless others offered something better." He chuckled, "But I doubt it." She nodded in understanding and focused on Felix, who was currently stepping outside of his car while stretching his hands behind his back. Excited and impatient, Marlion immediately jumped from the commentary platform into the ground, landing right next to Felix. He was clearly eager to interview him. Too bad, the moment he opened his left mouth, not a single sound left his lips. Despair engulfed Marlion as he stared at the tag above Felix's head. No interviews. Before, he assumed that Felix was just one of the many newbies who were only participating in the game to add numbers and make the veterans look good. However, after Felix made a joke of them all without even using his peak active ability, his biased view instantly switched. At this point, he wanted nothing more than to speak to the champion and barrage him with inquiries about his bloodline, personality, wishes, why he hit his face, and so many questions that were bloating head up. Sadly, that tag kept muting him every time he decided to speak. Visit N0VL/BIN For the best novel reading experience. Felix chuckled at this sight and waved his hand mildly towards the spectators who were singing his name out loud. Then under their eyes and the surviving players, he disintegrated into white particles. "No!" Marlion yelled with a horrified expression. But nothing much changed as Felix was truly gone. He dropped on his knees while murmuring in despair, "What about the trophy ceremony? Asking for a wish? Spending game points under the fans' eyes?" He punched the ground with his side fist, almost tearing up. "So many things to do, but you bastard escaped, leaving me to entertain the audience with those losers." Marlion was truly not overreacting, as the trophy ceremonial and wish fulfillment were one of the things everyone loved to watch. Without them, the spectators would honestly feel a bad taste in the mouths after they leave the stadium. They were the perfect closure to any game. Unfortunately, Felix didn't give a shit about their happy ending. There was no way in hell he would expose his wish or the items he bought with his game point during a goddamn livestream. The only ones who never missed such free publicity were the full-fledged idols, who feed on attention, literally. On the other hand, the ceremonial trophy acceptance was already a boring procedure for Felix, as he experienced it many times in his previous life. So, there was nothing left to keep him after winning the game unless he won a title. Felix wouldn't mind staying to receive it if that happened. Simply because he never got a title in his previous life. Neither a unique title nor an MVP title. Getting them was harder than it looked. Just like in this game, Felix was struggling to just win the game, yet to obtain the unique title, he had to massacre every player with him. What a joke! He barely killed 7 players. Don't even mention 45. Half an hour later, Felix stepped outside of the shower with a towel covering his nether region. Ah, what a bless! He sat on the living room couch in a relaxed manner. "Queen, show me the prize pool please." Shortly after, a long holographic list appeared in front of him. The list had more than 100 items on it, each with their own price. // high grade stone, common elements / uncommon elements / rare elements / equals 5 points / 10 points / 100 points. Peak grade stone, common elements / uncommon elements / rare element equals 40 points / 60 points / 600 points. The Crimson Storm Bull's broken horn equals 500 points. 3 petals elemental flower equals 600 points. Beautifying flower equals 780 points. Purity fountain drop equals 1200 point // Felix scrolled the entire list until he reached the last item, which was the Purity Fountain drop. He glanced at his current points that were displayed at top of the list and saw that he collected 1300 GP from the race. 1200 GP was from directly eliminating 6 players, and the extra 100 GP was counted as an assist after he indirectly caused Warshock's death. Though, it was only because his poison managed to affect him. If it didn't happen, he wouldn't have gotten anything. Just like the case with Mighty Monka. His death had no relation to him. Thus no points were rewarded. Without further ado, Felix pressed purchase on the Purity drop, and the serial number of the item was registered in his bracelet. He was left with only 100 GP. Still, Felix felt like he obtained a bargain, as he knew that material like Purity drop wasn't supposed to be included in a bronze game in the first place. Thus, he was quite pleased with his purchase. After dealing with his points, he closed the list and asked the Queen, "How many more drops would I obtain if I wished for them?" 5 drops, Sir Felix, that's the maximum amount you can ask for. Sigh, it's still far from 20 drops needed, but it's a good start. He requested, "Please fulfill my wish. I want the drops." "Are you certain? The moment you agree, you can't ask for a refund." She informed him. Yes. Instantly, the serial numbers of the 5 drops were added to his bracelet. 6 drops from 20 needed to make elemental potion at the first game. He smiled, not a bad start. Felix never planned to buy the elemental potion using his coins for 2 reasons. 1. The potion's known market price was 5 billion SC. 2. Even if he had the necessary capital, he wouldn't be able to find it either in public auctions, markets, or even in black markets. The potion was so rare that only a dozen arrive each year from the Forsythia Witch Empire, which belonged to the Sacred Witch race, to the Milky Way galaxy. That's right. Only a couple of potions for an entire goddamn galaxy. A galaxy that had 4 major empires and hundreds of kingdoms all fighting tooth and nail to get one single potion. Yet, Felix was supposed to contest with them for it? Not in a lifetime with his tragic reputation. That was why Felix decided to collect the materials needed for it and make a deal with a witch to concoct it for him. This was the method used by the majority of bloodliners who seek unobtainable potions. Though, this method was quite risky, as Felix could lose his materials and the order fees if the concoction process failed. But this was the only way he had to obtain it. He already had knowledge of the materials needed, and he planned to buy whatever he could with SC and use his victory wish for those he couldn't purchase. Just like the purity fountain drop. Felix was hell-bent on getting this potion no matter how the odds were stacked against him. As without it, he wouldn't be able to obtain another element to be enhanced by Asna. He already reached 100% poison affinity, leaving only his illusion element still stagnated at 12%. However, Felix never bothered with this element as the beasts that use it were either extinct, impossible to hunt, or low-tiered, not surpassing tier 4. Not to mention the resources needed for it were only sold in the auctions, even the cheapest one. Thus, the method of buying high-grade stones and using them wasn't going to work on this rare element. That being said, the enhancement cheat was actually not his most pressing issue. His real objective from the potion was to unlock another element and seek its primogenitor bloodline. No matter how strong and amazing the Rumungandr bloodline, it had to be replaced in order to reach the first stage of replacement. Felix had absolutely no plans to be stuck in the purification realm forever, where his elemental energy was trash, physical strength was weak, and mental defenses non-existent. All of those basic powers were added only after continuous replacement of bloodlines over and over again until he reached the origin realm. If Felix integrated with the Rumungandr bloodline at the 6th stage of a replacement instead of awakening with it, he would have been able to merge his inducements without worrying constantly that his energy was insufficient. Thus, only when his body reached the peak could he truly bring the real potential and powers of the primogenitor bloodlines. That being said, he would never settle with any bloodline except ones that either had the same strength as the Rumungandr or stronger than him. Nothing below it. His bloodline path was going to be created only by the best bloodlines in the universe. He did not care if he was going to throw tens billions of coins to concoct the elemental potions. If the process failed once, he would try again. If it failed twice, he would try again. He would keep trying and trying until it worked. Period. 5 minutes later. Felix was sitting in the living room fully dressed. He wasn't doing anything besides stare at the ceiling with an absent-minded expression. He kept trying to access his consciousness and fix his relationship with Asna, but he had no idea where to start. Heck, he still could not figure out what truly upset her to such a degree. He knew that his taunts were a bit too much, but still, they were just taunts. Based on Asna's personality, she should have shrugged them off by now and started planning a way to get her revenge. That what he assumed would happen and what he actually prepared for, not this. Sigh, it seems like my only option is to talk to her face to face. He gave a bitter smile and closed his eyes. Inside the consciousness, in the mist-made mansion, Felix sat on the bed next to Asna, who was still using the flame spirit form. 5 minutes had already passed by and Felix tried everything to make her speak again. From apologizing, complimenting to even tickling her. Yet she was still as unresponsive as a log. "All right, it's better if I just leave then." Felix sighed and stood up, planning to exit his consciousness. There was nothing much to do anyway. He already tried everything to no avail. So it was better to just head out than to remain next to her in total awkward silence. However, the moment he got up from the bed, he heard a soft whisper. A whisper inaudible if one didn't pay attention. But in this pin-drop silence, Felix heard it as loud as thunder. "I have been sealed for over 20 million years. But I slept the entire duration, waking up only when someone stumbles upon my prison." Asna's mellow and enticing voice that Felix was used to hearing was completely gone, as she spoke in a tone filled with misery and suffering. "You have no idea what it feels like to be sealed from your childhood with old fogies until you grow old just like them by only sleeping." Her voice suddenly cracked, as she sniffled. 20 million years of my life was wasted lying dormant. If you didn't come, I would have been there for eternity. So even if I don't show it, I am still grateful that you saved me." Just as Felix opened his mouth, trying to respond, he closed it shut as he heard her continue while sobbing, "But you keep mentioning those memories that I desperately want to erase. That's what hurts me the most. Being reminded constantly that even when I am living a second chance of life, I am still 20 million years old." Ashamed and feeling guilty, Felix lowered his head as he remembered his careless remarks. He kept speaking lightly about her being sealed like it meant nothing to her. He never once thought or bothered to put himself in her shoes and try to understand what she had gone through. 20 million years? The human race didn't exist in the universe for even a third of it. Yet, Asna spent that entire period doing nothing but sleeping in utter loneliness. It was already a miracle that she didn't snap and went mental. God knows everyone would have. Now, after finally being freed from her shackles, she got sealed yet again in Felix's body. But she wasn't despairing as much as in her previous life. Since now, she truly had a chance to start a brand new life, away from the bad experience she had gone through before. It might not be as good as she wanted and dreamed of, but at least it was something. It meant something, for her. "You are right, this is our second chance of life, not mine alone. And you deserve to live it as you wish." Felix caressed her softly and said, "For now, you can't do so, but don't worry, it won't be long before you get to enjoy your freedom." He gave her a solemn expression he never showed before and promised, "You have my word." Asna's flame spirit form abruptly was replaced with her human form. Due to their close distance, her head manifested near his face. He stared at her hazy golden eyes, stunned, speechless, not knowing how to react. Yet, she just had made it worse by hugging him gently. "Can you visit me each day? I don't want to sleep for years again." She whispered her request in his ear. Felix could only nod his head stiffly in agreement. Meanwhile, his eyes kept darting from her exposed cleavage to her breathtaking face. He was truly about to have a nosebleed from this sight. But he had to hold it in. He didn't want to embarrass himself in front of her. "Asna, can you calculate only the years that you were awake in the ruins?" he requested hastily while looking at the mansion ceiling. Asna did as she was told and started calculating seriously while still lying in his embrace. Felix kept staring at the ceiling with a deadpan expression, waiting patiently for her to finish. I gained consciousness 2,000 years before I got sealed. Add it to the 500 years I was awake during the imprisonment." She smiled charmingly and said, "It means I am only 2,500 years. Felix dodged her smile reflexively with his eyes and replied, "All right, in this life your true age is 2,500 years. I will never mention 20 million years again." "I love it!" Asna jumped from his embrace while clapping her hands in delight. Felix sighed in relief after she finally got off. His dragon was really about to take a peek. But, don't you think 2,500 years is too young? She suddenly asked. What do you mean? 2,500 years is already quite old to me. Felix raised his eyebrows in bewilderment. Oh, I forgot your human race mortal average lifespan is merely 80 years. She chuckled while covering her mouth and explained, however, for my uni-jin race, we don't have a lifespan, we are eternal. As long as the universe stands, we stand as well with it. That's why we were sealed instead of being killed by the go. She suddenly coughed, so the oldest of us decided to asset life growth for newborns like me, from gaining consciousness to finally being able to do our duty as beings of laws. Baffled, Felix just kept listening to her without having a single clue what the F***ck she was talking about. Laws? Eternals? Gaining consciousness? Why the hell she blatantly hid the name of the individual or group responsible for sealing her? His mind was in a complete mess with those kinds of questions. Asna heard them as well, yet she didn't address them at all. She simply continued her explanation about the age. The first 1,000 years is our childhood. You can say the first 10 years for humans. After so, we enter adolescence. Sadly, it ends only after 3,000 years. From then on, we become adu.l.ts to eternity, and start fulfilling our birth duty. Your favorite ovals at n/v/l/bin. Com. So 2,500 years is quite young for me, as it means I am not even an adult. She offered him a playful smile while advancing in his direction. Is this what you want? A teenage girl living in your consciousness, my dear Felix? She asked. Felix's eyelids twitched at her teasing and started backing away from her until he reached the end of the bed. Asna, you can add 500 years and make yourself an adu.l.t, I don't give a shit honestly. He replied. Asna climbed on the bed and began approaching slowly on all four. Her sleeping gown was a bit messy, making her expose parts of her pale unblemished skin to Felix, who was sitting stiffly at the end of the bed. Are you sure about that, my dear Felix? She asked while licking her lips in a seductive manner. Felix instantly made a tactical retreat after seeing the situation derail to his worst nightmare. She was about to reach him and see that his dragon was as stiff as a log. Felix would never give her the satisfaction of seeing him getting aroused by her. F***cku Asna, if you keep doing this shit, I swear I will either assault you or not bother visiting you ever again. Of course, he didn't forget to leave one last remake while running away. Unbothered about his threat, Asna fixed her clothes and humphed lightly, that's for belittling my beauty before. In the end, she was still butthurt about him disparaging her beauty by his remarks. She wouldn't be Asna if she didn't take her revenge. And don't you dare use my face as a mold for your stupid games. I don't want everyone to copy my face. She suddenly yelled. Fine. You cheapskate, why do you need to be so b***tchy about it? It's just a face. Felix replied in irritation after being denied even this. Asna ignored his tantrum and watched him close the face modification interface. The bastard immediately opened it after leaving his consciousness. Obviously, he was planning on taking advantage of her good mood and request her permission. Sadly, she told him off, before he even opened his mouth. Sigh, I guess the hoodie will be my friend for a long time. He mumbled. Amused and delighted, she giggled softly after seeing him try to customize the hoodie with a gloomy expression. Should I keep it black? Felix had his hand under his chin while looking at the holographic black hoodie. Before, he didn't bother with it since he thought that it was only a temporary solution until Asna gives him her blessing. Sadly, he was brutally refused. So now, he could only work on the hoodie to make it look better. He would rather keep acting mysterious than show a random face to those shallow fans. After all, he earned 150 million SC just from the 3% streaming revenue he got after winning the game. As for eliminations, he only got a bonus of 5 million SC over each direct kill. Since he took out 6 players, he obtained 30 million SC. This revenue was only for a bronze game, where tickets were as cheap as dirt and the live stream was free for all. In gold games and above, ticket prices were expensive and the live stream was based on a paid monthly subscription to the SG website. Imagine the massive amount he would be able to earn from the 3% revenue of winning a gold game. Plus, having a huge fanbase supporting him and coming to watch all of his games. Felix wasn't rushing to reach gold rank for no reason. He knew that the difference between bronze rank and gold rank couldn't be measured in the slightest. Get the latest CHDers on n/velben.com. Sigh, if only I was allowed to bet on myself, I would have earned a fortune already from abusing those newbies. He shook his head at the sudden thought that just crossed his mind. Damn, I can't even give Olivia or grandfather my coins to bet on me. He rubbed his hair in vexation over missing such a free windfall. But he could only suck it up and focus on other methods to earn coins. Ultimately, he couldn't just tell his grandfather and Olivia that he was landlord and they must bet on him with hundreds of millions. They were not foolish enough to not realize that Felix was hiding a deep secret. After all, how could someone who just reached lesser purity have 2 active abilities? Not to mention earning that huge amount of coins in such a short amount of time. His bullshit excuse of winning them in bets or lotteries wouldn't work again. So, the best option was just to keep landlord's identity hidden and forget about betting on himself. Tisk, F***king bet abuser ruining everything for me. He clicked his tongue in criticism at the player, who caused betting on oneself to be against the rules. The bastard found a loophole in the betting system and took advantage of it, causing the betting den to lose at least 8 billion SC at once. Based on what Felix read in his TV documentary, that bastard was always hovering in peak tier gold rank. Sometimes he reached it and most of the time he dropped back to low tier gold. Then start all over until he reached it again. However, one day he lost 5 games in a row while being at low tier. Any player who lost that amount gets dropped down to a lower rank immediately. In his case, he was put back in silver again. Instead of being furious about it as the majority of the players, he saw an opportunity. An opportunity that might change his life forever. His plan was simple. Loss as much as possible while staying alive until he gets dropped to low-tier silver, then heavily bet on himself to win the game. Additionally, he made all of his close friends and family members bet on him. As expected, he won the game he was placed in, managing to clutch the championship by some difficulty. Yet, the news of his strategy and total amount he earned didn't take even a day before getting leaked by a close friend of his. The moment the news was out, every player rushed to imitate his strategy before it got patched. Sadly, the Queen didn't give them even a day before patching it up by removing betting on oneself. In addition to making all the players who dropped in lower ranks to be put together in the same games. At that point, good luck betting on yourself against players with the same or an above strength than yours. The Queen's decisions and solutions were always efficient and straight to the point. Speaking of ranks, Felix swiped the holographic hoodie to the side and pressed on his profile interface, planning to read the new changes to his stats. /////// Rank, mid-tier bronze rank, play 3 more placement games to get your final rank. Games played, 001. Wins, 001. Loss, 000. Win streak, 001. Loss streak, 000. Eliminations, 006 ///. As expected, for each placement he won, he gets placed 2 tiers higher, unlike getting only 1 tier higher after winning one normal game. This was the reason he must win those placement games, as it would take him a lot of effort to climb the 4 tiers of each rank, low, mid, high, and peak to finally reach gold. Not to mention that Felix could also lose games and drop down in tiers. He was not arrogant to think that he could win all of his games just because of his unique bloodline. After all, there were some types of games that were extremely disadvantageous to his abilities or required a set of skills he didn't possess. The Supremacy games were not operating on who had the strongest fist, but who could adapt in every unique situation and emerge as the champion. Satisfied and content, Felix closed his profile interface and decided to go take a quick nap. In his previous life, he always took one after each game, whether he won or lost. It became a habit hard to remove. But it was a healthy habit, as after each game a quick break was needed to switch gears. Without further ado, he went straight to his bedroom, totally forgetting about changing the color of his hoodie. Honestly, based on Felix's character, he would end up eventually leaving it with its default black color. At least, the black color goes well with his sweatpants and sneakers he planned on wearing during the games. 4 hours later. Let's see if I left a mark online or not. With a coffee mug in one hand, Felix typed his name in the search engine and pressed enter. How to enter Landlord of Inducement's fan club? Responsible over document you documentation. Felix gave a warm smile at the young image of his bio writer. He was still in his teens. Well, he didn't know if that was his real face or not. But in the UVR, there was an unofficial rule that everyone followed. One should always treat people based on the image they picked. If it wasn't for so, Felix wouldn't have been treated as a youngster by the majority of shops he visited. Might as well cheer him up a little. He sent 2 blue thumbs up using his landlord profile. Then, he left the website and closed all the holographic screens. However, just as he planned to log out, the Queen informed him monotonously, "Sir, you have received 13 new emails to your landlord ID. Do you want me to read them?" she asked. Surprised, Felix raised his eyebrows at those emails that were directed to his landlord profile and not his UVR ID. "Please do so," he requested and sat back on the couch. The first email is from the Dread Serpent clan. She said, // Dear Mr. Landlord. Your performance during the death race has been truly a feast to our eyes. You have exceeded our requirement to join the trails of our clan, thus we decided to invite you straightway as an inner circle member. Moreover, if you decided to accept our invitation, you shall be rewarded with a poisonous fang of the specter snake. We are waiting patiently to hear good news from you. Sincerely yours. The Dread Serpent clan, // The second email is from the Dark Miasma clan. // Dear Mr. Landlord. My name is Joseph, a scouting member of the Dark Miasma clan, one of the top 3 clans in the Alexander Kingdom. I have watched your game live and was thrilled by every second of it. Of course, that was all due to your spectacular performance. Still, I have noticed that your potential was not fully dug out yet, and I believe, no. I am certain that by joining our clan, you will reach your full potential. We have all the necessary resources to help you achieve so. Needless to say, this is a direct invitation to be an inner circle member. In addition, during your first month in the clan, you will be able to attend a class on how to create techniques by our guest elder Mr. Sulfur free of charge. I hope I can hear from you as soon as possible. Sincerely yours. Scout Joseph, // Just as the Queen tried to continue reading the remaining emails, Felix stopped her by asking, "Are all of those emails invitations to clans?" Yes. All right, no need to read them anymore. Just replay to all of them that I am currently not looking for a clan to join. He waved his hand dismissively and added, and also, replay to any further clan invitation I receive with the same response. As you wish, Sir Felix. Learn techniques? He shook his head as he chuckled. The moment I chose this bloodline path, there is no one alive to teach me. Queen, log me out, please. 2 days quickly passed by. Felix spent those days on a break, doing nothing but head to his island's beach to enjoy himself or visit Asna. The tense partnership that was between them got slightly improved after their bonding. Now Asna didn't sleep as much but spent the majority of her time watching Felix and annoying him constantly to either come play cards with her or watch a movie together. Felix wasn't complaining though, as he found out that Asna could be pretty fun if she didn't curse, insult, harass, tease, seduce, whine, never mind. Still, Felix thoroughly enjoyed those 2 days break, as he honestly felt beyond refreshed after working his ass off for an entire year in order to build a solid foundation for his future. This was probably the first time he took a real break since the moment he was sent to this timeline, and he loved it. Nevertheless, fun times had a limit, and 2 days were more than enough for Felix. Thus, the next morning, he re-entered the VR pod, going for another bloodline essence hunt with high hopes of finding some. What am I supposed to do with those? Felix kept staring at the 8 bottles of bloodlines he collected in the previous months but turned to be empty of Rumungandra essence. He spent a whopping 850 million on them, yet not a single bottle brought a smile to his face. He felt heartache just their sight, sitting there absolutely useless. I should probably enter a beast hunter partnership with Luby. He sighed. Even though the price will be lower by 5%, at least I won't be bothered with selling them by myself. He was actually planning previously to open a shop where he could sell those bloodlines. But it took too much effort to get a shop license and a hefty amount of time to build a solid reputation in the Androxa capital city. In addition, he would need to keep his shop constantly updated with new bloodlines to not lose customers, and those bloodlines need to vary of course in elements, tiers, and ranks. That was exactly what he wasn't interested in doing. He was simply trying to resell the bloodlines he bought without losing too many coins in the process. Not to start a business of it. He neither had the time nor the patience to do so. So, it was much better to enter a solid contract with Luby and sell him those bloodlines with a 5% less market price. I need to first prepare the contract. Felix quickly made his decision and withdrew those bottles to his AP bracelet. Queen, give me the basic hunter contract please, he requested. A moment after, a holographic contract was presented in front of Felix. He read everything with his eyes and marked the terms that he needed to modify. After a couple of hours of grilling the contract, Felix finally was satisfied with the latest version. He reread it again to memorize everything, so he wouldn't be ambushed by that silly goblin during their negotiation. So far so good, that greedy dog won't hesitate to sign this freebie. Are you done yet? You promised you will take me to the movies. So hurry up already. Asna rushed him while doing her nails in utter boredom. Stop whining already. I just need him to sign it and we can go then. Annoyed, Felix replied while changing his outfit to a more formal one. After all, he was heading not as a customer but as a partner. So, he needed to dress properly. I am not signing this bullshit even if you stabbed me to death. Felix stared indifferently at Luby who was huffing in anger like he was being blackmailed. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #475939699111133196 for visiting. Alright, I will take my business somewhere else. He murmured while walking towards the brick wall. Sillilan shop is quite a good option. Just like before, Luby jumped on him and hugged his thigh tightly, not letting go. What are you doing? You are ruining my pants, Felix said while jerking his leg around. Yet this time, Luby gripped for his dear life. 7 sit envelb/n, c/m for L test vels. After seeing that this greedy bastard was hell-bent on stopping him, he decided to drop his charade and asked again, "Are you going to sign the contract or not? My terms are quite generous. Plus, I even offered you triple the price of a bloodline if it turned to be lower than 75% essence." He then grabbed Luby from his long-dropped ears and pulled him away from his leg. Ow, oh, you are tearing them apart. F***CK. Let go of me, Luby yelled while being lifted in the air by Felix. Are you signing or not? Felix just asked while tightening his grip. Ow. I am signing. Just let go already. Thud. Felix immediately dropped him in the ground and displayed the contract again in front of him. Sign it, I don't have all day to negotiate over 0.5% as you do. Luby did not bullshit anymore and signed the contract obediently. He already planned to get it no matter what. But would his nickname be Greedy Dog Luby if he didn't haggle for 0.5%? Too bad, Felix had Vixen in his head constantly whining to take her to the movies, so he didn't have the luxury to entertain him. You should have done it from the start. Here, take. Felix took the 8 bottles out and put them on the table. As agreed upon, pay me up front. He offered him his hand. Feeling the sting of transferring such a large amount at once, Luby touched Felix's bracelet with watery eyes and shaky hands. Whoosh. Felix pressed on his bank account and smiled delightfully at the newly added 807 million SC. Then, he nodded his head while saying one last time, "Glad to do business with you. And remember, any high-tier poison serpent or snake that lands in your hands, I got dibs on them. I will call you then. Now leave me alone, I need to drink my sorrow," Luby said, dismissing him with slumped shoulders. Felix left through the brick wall, not caring about Luby's fake sadness anymore. The bastard was going to earn free 60 million from selling his bloodlines. Yet he still dared to cry about it. Movie! 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 Felix drove his car towards the cinema under Asna's cheering. Maybe it was better if she continued sleeping, he thought to himself subconsciously. F***CK. I dare you to say it again. Asna instantly raged. You think I don't dare? Felix roared as well. Yes, I do. Well, you are right. Felix folded and drove away. He truly didn't want to antagonize this third wheel, especially now that he planned to play with Nora. He didn't want to hear her sarcastic commentary while doing Nora. That would be a nightmare. Just as I thought. Asna humphed. In the UVR, inside a towering spherical building that had a dark red-scaled serpent coiled around it, an elderly man with a golden beard sighed dejectedly after receiving disheartening news. It's understandable to reject those low-class clans, but to reject even us, the rebellious Abrak clan, he truly doesn't know what's best for him. Sir Brandy, you are completely right. This man is simply acting arrogant cause he landed on a legendary bloodline. But so what? Without joining a clan, he won't be able to follow a bloodline path and learn techniques. A good-looking young man with red scales around his neck scoffed. Mirage, don't disparage others without full information. After all, who knows if he is in a different clan already? Brandy scolded, find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47597680477667098 for visiting. I doubt it, if he was in a clan he wouldn't be hiding under that hoodie, but proudly represent his clan in the games as the majority does. He snickered. I tell you, he simply lucked out on that bloodline and now he feels like he is a big shot. Whatever, if he refused us there is no point mulling over it anymore. He is just one of the hundreds of invitations we sent. Brandy murmured, though, he was quite special than others. Sir, don't worry too much, I am sure he will come begging for us later to accept him. He shrugged his shoulders. A clan is a must in our bloodline paths, and is there any serpent poison clan better than ours in the Mariana Empire? We will see, though I have a strange feeling that he will tread on the solitary path and not bother with any clan. Brandy said. That's impossible, sir. Mirage shook his head firmly. Even if Elder Brandy was a prestige scout, who was known for having sharp senses, Mirage still dared to firmly oppose him. He knew that the elder feeling was too far of a stretch. Solitary path? Heh. He knew that not a single sane human dared anymore to risk their future over unknown paths when they could simply join a clan and obtain a perfect bloodline path that leads to the origin realm. Not to mention, the techniques that took those clans thousands of years to amass. He truly believed that Felix would not bother to create his own bloodline path when he could just join their clan that had a well-made one with higher chances than others to reach the origin realm. The clan's entire existence in the first place was created by origin realm bloodliners to keep their descendants who inherited their bloodline and abilities united against the rest. But nowadays, the majority of clans were turned public for everyone to join. A bloodliner just needed to have the same affinity as the bloodline path the clan was following and he could take the trails of entry. However, the moment someone joined he must use the same beast's bloodlines from awakening to the 6th stage of the replacement. This was the true meaning of a bloodline path. A combination of all the bloodlines one used since awakening until emerging as a new subhuman race in the origin realm. The majority of the clans had a perfect bloodline path that leads to that realm. In other words, someone used it and reached that realm successfully. On the other hand, imperfect paths were ones that either had compatibility issues between the bloodlines beasts used or simply the last tier 7 beast was impossible to be devoured by the 1% of the human bloodline. Read latest chapters at n/velbi.co/m. This showed that it was easier to fall into an imperfect path than to land into a perfect one leading to the top of the human ladder. This was why humans stopped bothering with researching for new paths and decided to simply join ancient clans and make their lives easier. But what truly killed solitary paths or research paths was the techniques created from the combination of active and passive abilities of different bloodlines one used during his path. A bloodliner could combine active ability with another active ability, or active with a passive, and finally passive with passive. The minimum requirement needed for a technique to be created was for the abilities combined to be from different bloodlines. The tier or the rank didn't matter, as long as they were different. For example, in Felix's previous life, he learned Absolute Mind technique from the clan he was on. This technique was created from the combination of passive ability Blood Regulation of Uncommon Tier 1 Giant Anaconda, and the active ability Intermediate Mind Control of Epic Tier 4 Wisdom Serpent. This technique allowed his blood to be as cold as ice and have the same characteristics as reptiles. The cold blood circulates to his brain and makes it into a cold processing machine. Adding to the intermediate mind control used on him, and his emotions were completely gone. He could watch his grandfather get slain in front of him and his thoughts would still remain clear and unaffected. This was just one of the many techniques amassed over the years of the clan. So, who would bother going on his own way to risk his life creating techniques, when he could simply just join a clan and have them all ready for picking the moment he reached first stage of replacement? All of this without dropping a single sweat. Unfortunately for Felix, he couldn't join any clan since his path was unique to only himself. As for the techniques, he had to create them by himself, and the process of creating them wasn't any regular Joe could do. They took a lot of time, experience, and most of all, having a pain tolerance way above average. Just from this, Mirage was certain that Felix would join them soon or later. In his eyes, although Felix already kept up his chances of having their perfect bloodline path by awakening with a legendary beast, at least he would be able to learn their techniques. Too bad, he had no idea that Felix wasn't just treading on any solitary path, but on the solitary path that could only be explored by him. Are you happy now? Annoyed, Felix said while exiting the cinema, after ending up watching 2 movies instead of 1. She threatened him that she would ruin his night with Nora if he didn't. So, he could only comply. I still want to watch more. But I won't make things hard for you, since you have a date with that ugly duckling. She replied while stretching her hands behind her back. Well, it's not a date per se. He coughed, but more like she will visit me home to drink coffee. You lying bastard. You told me it will the same as before, a date in a restaurant. She yelled. We already did that, and I have no time to redo it again. Now it's time to take it up a notch. Felix said as he turned the engine of his car on. If you plan to do that. Can I watch? She asked curiously. *CK no. Leave me alone for tonight. You better keep your promise and cut the connection off. Otherwise, I won't visit you anymore. Felix denied her firmly. Watch him? What kind of crack she was on to request that? Felix didn't want a spectator when he tries to tame Nora. Even with his thick skin, he would still feel ashamed a bit. Fine. I hope her brother finds out and breaks your balls. She cursed him and cut off the connection right away. Sign, what am I supposed to do with that gorilla? He smiled wryly after remembering Nora's overprotective brother. He honestly just want to go for a fling with Nora, doing it a couple of times until his L.U.S.T gets soothed then refocus on his important matters. But it seemed like Nora came with a large drama package on her shoulder. If he wanted her, he must go through her brother first, and he would rather change clubs in the training center than waste his time on such nonsense. Sigh, whatever if things go out of hand, I can simply climb up and join another floor. Even though Felix wanted to have Nora, he still wouldn't land himself in an unending family drama for her. There was plenty of fish in the UVR. If he saw that her brother was hellbent on rejecting their fling, he could only ignore her and train on higher floors. As for beating her brother up, Felix had no such thoughts. After all, he was literally trying to get into his sister's pants. It was only normal that her brother wouldn't like that one bit. Though his reaction to destroying men's jewels even in real life was a tad over the top, Felix totally understood where he was coming from. But understanding was one thing and letting himself be put in the same position was another. If her brother dared to approach him with ill intentions, he wouldn't mind teaching him a lesson. Exactly, once in a while. He gave her a straightforward answer. She flinched at his brutal honesty, but she still didn't sound a single complaint to him. She simply hung her head low silently. Discover dated novels on NOV/E/Lbin.co. Felix waited for a couple of seconds, and she still didn't speak. He knew that she just gave him her silent agreement. As he expected, deep down she just wanted the same as him. As for feelings, real feelings? They take a long time to cultivate and not suddenly appear from a single word or look. Now that we got that out of the way. His smile turned cold instantly as he asked, "Tell me, which punishment do you deserve after keeping me waiting?" He truly wasted no time, as he got into character immediately. She wanted to be dominated, then he would gladly fulfill her wish. Nora stood frozen at his bone-chilling tone with parted lips and legs trembling slightly. She didn't let a single sound. "Are you trying to keep me waiting again?" he asked. Nora lowered her head with flushed cheeks and answered with a stutter, "No, no." Good, now tell me how I should punish you, he said. Nora opened her mouth and said, I think I company. Wrong answer. Felix cut her off suddenly. Then, he stood up and approached her with his hands behind his back and his dreadful slits thinner than a string. Of course, he used his real eyes to meet her up. Nora felt scared at the sight, but at the same time her heartbeat speed up in anticipation of her punishment. Ah, is he going to slap me? Abuse me? I feel hot just thinking about it. Nora's mind was turned upside down with dirty thoughts as she watched Felix's hand gently rub her cheek. However, Felix did none of what she wanted. After all, he planned to punish her, not to reward her. He was not a retard to not understand her type. So he just teased her like this, from touching her cheeks to slightly putting a finger inside her lips. Yet, before Nora gets to indulge on it, he took it out, leaving her breathing ruggedly with hazy eyes. Felix smiled at her begging eyes, yet he remained composed in his punishment. After a while of this torturing teasing for Nora, he found that she couldn't take it anymore. And so he stopped and went back to his seat, leaving her leaning on the table as support. Listen well, and listen carefully, he informed. Tonight, you have neither opinions nor ideas. Tonight you are my servant, my pet, and my slave. You do what I tell you, and only what I tell you. Understood? Nora nodded her head softly in agreement. This was what she wanted in the first place, to be completely submissive to him. Her heart begs for it, and her mind couldn't stop thinking about it. Good girl. Felix smiled. Now stand near me, and undress slowly. I want to savor your body. Nora blushed at his order but still moved as he willed. She stood 2 meters in front of him and began to slowly unveil her pale skin with her back facing him. Felix observed the elegant curve of her back beneath the Dr. A.P.Ed fabric of her mini black dress. Yet, this alluring sight was further enhanced after she removed her dress from the top, exposing her shoulders first, then her red bra that was connected with multiple strings, reaching further down. Nora paused and turned her head towards him with anticipation in her eyes. Felix understood what she wanted and praised her with a slight nod. Satisfied with his praise, Nora offered an enticing smile with her red lips and continued to pull her dress down while bending slightly in his direction. Felix's eyes brightened up a bit at the sight of her, exposing an irresistible peachy rear that had merely a thin red string between her butt cheeks, covering her sensitive parts. After undressing fully, she stood straight and faced him, embarrassed to make eye contact. On the other hand, Felix savored her nude body that was wrapped like a charisma gift with sexy laced red lingerie, connecting her bra and panties with multiple tight strings. She was almost a different species with her narrow waist, her bra.s.ts round as gra.p. foot. Plus, with that enchanting lingerie she was wearing, her breathtaking visual increased significantly. Nora, look at me, Felix ordered. Nora lifted her head and stared at his eyes bashfully. Your body is truly a piece of art. He praised her genuinely, making her blush even further. But this time she didn't dodge his eyes but stared at them affectionately. What do I do now? She asked softly. Come sit on my lap. I want to take a closer look, he ordered her with a mild smile. Nora submissively sat on his lap with her legs closed tight and hands on her thighs. Felix felt the warmness of her peachy rear on his leg and couldn't help but grab it with his hand and squeeze it roughly. Ha! A.M.O.A.N. escaped her lips at his rough grip. But, she still let him continue kneading her rear as he wished without resisting. Soon, he let go of it, leaving it as red as her face. Felix smiled and pulled Nora closer. Her torso was touching his, and her full bra.s.ts pressed onto his chest. Her breathing became a bit heavy as she felt his body heat. Her legs that were closed tight couldn't help but open up slightly, gesturing him to touch her sensitive part. Felix ignored the main dish for now and lifted her chin with a finger. She looked at him with exaltation and adoration. "What do you want me to do now?" he whispered softly, while his lips almost touching hers. "I am your servants for tonight. I don't have wants," she answered with a soft breath hitting his face. "Good girl." He touched her cheeks with his hands and rewarded her with a passionate kiss. Nora hugged his neck tightly and kissed him back impatiently. She waited too long for this moment, and now she desired nothing more but to have him ravage her for tonight. Felix felt her rashness and complied by sticking his tongue inside her juicy mouth. Nora panted irregularly as she felt his tongue twirl around hers, turning her entire body into mush and her mind completely blank. She laid on his embrace and let him assault her lips, tongue, ears, and neck as he pleased. The only thing she was doing was rubbing her bra.s.ts on his chest boldly to alleviate her stiff sensitive N.I.P.P.L.es. Yet, that was not enough for her. So she spread her legs widely, exposing her wet red panties for him to see, and stroked her most sensitive part gently while m.o.a.ing in pleasure. Felix stopped his foreplay after seeing her impatience to be devoured. "Why did you stop?" she asked while continuing to touch herself. Felix chuckled and put his fingers inside her red panties. He then showed her his wet sticky fingers and said, "How could I continue when you are like this?" Nora blushed and closed her legs in shame. Felix laughed and lifted her suddenly, then walked towards his bedroom. "Let's carry on in my bedroom, I got quite a few surprises waiting there for you." Nora's eyes enlarged in anticipation while looking at the bedroom in front of them. Felix entered and closed the door shut with his leg. Slam. "Felix, what are those toys and tools?" Her exclamation escaped from the cracks of the door. "You will see later." Felix laughed in a lewd manner. After a while, only suppressed m.o.a.ns and flesh clapping with each other resounded e.r.o.t.i. in the living room. A wild party was going inside that closed-shut door unbeknownst to Felix's neighbors. Next morning, 9:30 a.m. Felix yawned while rubbing his hair lazily after waking up. He cracked his neck lightly to the side and was met with an arousing image. Nora sleeping fully nude on her stomach, while her legs spread open exposing her pink sensitive parts. Her long wavy pink hair covering only her back, leaving her but standing upright like a mound. Smack! Felix slapped her right butt cheek, leaving a red mark on it. "Rise and shine, sleeping beauty, don't you have a club to attend?" Felix chuckled at her clutching her butt cheeks tightly after his slap. But she still didn't wake up and only murmured softly, "I won't go today, I can't feel my legs anymore." Felix sat on her peachy butt and played with it in enjoyment. "Stop whining and heal yourself. Today, you have to go to the club no matter what. Otherwise, your brother will find out about you sneaking to come here." "So what if he found out? He is not the boss of me," she murmured in her sleep. Find the new st ovals on n/velben.com. "Alright, if you are certain that he won't come to annoy me later on, you can continue sleeping." He jumped off the bed and said, "But do know this, the moment he makes a move on me because of what happened here, I will not hesitate to bash his face. If he still kept coming at me during my training, I will change floors and stop meeting up with you. Now, are you going to wash up with me or not?" he asked as he walked towards the bathroom, kicking the toys that were laying on the floor on his way. The room truly resembled a battlefield. "Fine, I'm going to the club." "Don't shower yet, wait for me." Nora immediately healed herself and chased after him with her bra.s.ts and peachy but jiggling. She entered the shower after him with anticipation for round 10. She couldn't remember anymore. They did it so many times she lost count. 1 hour later. So, did you have fun, my dear Felix? Asna asked teasingly after she opened up the connection between them. Why are you asking me? Just read my memories and see for yourself. Felix indifferently answered her while driving towards the teleportation company. Tisk, why would I want to watch two monkeys doing it? She huffed in annoyance. Woman, can you not be so fickle? You just begged me yesterday to let you watch. Felix could only rub his eyebrows at her fickleness. I didn't beg you. It was merely a momentary interest on how you humans do it, that's all. She explained. Well, you can fulfill your interest from my memories, as for watching me live? Forget about it. He laid out his ultimatum right now, so she wouldn't bother him anymore when Nora pays him a visit again. Asna understood what he meant and humphed lightly. Then, she stopped asking him about it and changed the subject. When are you to visit me today? I want to play cards. She asked while creating a misty card bundle in her hand. Later, I need to go check Mariana capital markets and auctions for Bloodlines essence. He sighed, hopefully this time my luck showers me with some percentages. Oh, you reminded me, I still have the pieces and parts of J. Rumungandra memories that I collected. She asked, do you want to hear them now? No, leave them until I reach 99%. He shook his head and said, then piece what you could and give a solid history of the primogenitor. HHM. She gave him a sound of approval and stopped bothering him after seeing that he was about to teleport. A few seconds later. Felix stood near a fountain that had a humongous white statue of a breathtaking woman, holding in each hand a small version of a different beast. Those two beasts were famous throughout the entire Milky Way galaxy, as one of them was what Mariana used to awaken with and the other was for the first stage replacement. As you could guess, this was Mariana Mulford, the goddess who created the 6 stages of replacement for humans single-handedly. She broke the bloodline chains of the purification realm that held the human race for over 1 million years. Her achievements were boundless and extraordinary. Even the empire was named after her, although the current royal family had a different last name. Felix bowed slightly in respect and threw a hard coin in the fountain water. Then, he turned around and left. He was not the only one who was doing so, as the teleportation company of this city was standing face to face with this fountain. Thus, anyone who teleported over must pay respect to Mariana by throwing a coin. This tradition was being upheld by the majority of humans. It was just basic courtesy to her overwhelming contribution. As Felix continued walking through the busy streets, his eyes kept observing the packed yet clean streets and towering buildings piercing the clouds with different unique designs never seen before on Earth. However, what truly made him feel nostalgic were the hundreds upon hundreds of varying people going back and forth beside him. They were unique in the way they walk, speak, dress, and act. The only thing in common between them was the fact they were minding their business as they went on their way. This sight was only available in a few places in the Milky Way galaxy UVR. Mariana Capital was the best of them. It was even nicknamed the center of culture due to being the only empire in the galaxy to have hundreds of kingdoms all residing within its territory. Both in reality and in UVR. It might sound like a good thing to have such a huge amount of diversity, but in fact, the true residents of the empire only saw them as pests and leeches taking their fortunes and resources from them. Felix in his previous life was also counted as being a leech even though he obtained a permanent residency in the empire after he successfully passed the trails of the triple-headed Cobra clan. That was the same clan he was on when he entered the ruins in his previous life. He was especially bullied the most by clan members who were born and raised in the Empire, and for Felix who came from the Alexander Kingdom territory, he wasn't really well liked in the clan, just like other members, who came from different kingdoms. Regardless of those bad memories, Felix still felt nostalgic the moment he stepped inside the city. After all, he spent the majority of his years in it. The reason he had to relocate his real-life residency to the main planet of the clan was to avoid paying the outrageous fees of space deliveries. At that time, it was quite easy to just carry his stuff and immigrate from Earth to another planet. Why wouldn't he? His parents died, his grandfather died of a heart attack, and Olivia bled to death during awakening. The only one left on Earth, who he had a good relationship with him, was his mother's best friend Aunt Mary. But now, he couldn't just do so anymore, especially before he earns a representative spot for his planet during the World Representative Battle. He couldn't miss such a juicy platform where he could join the Supremacy Games with his real face. Ultimately, his landlord persona would be kept hidden, and he wouldn't be able to take advantage of it in real life. That's why, he was still staying on Earth even though he had the money and the means to immigrate to the Mariana Empire or any kingdom in that sense, in order to avoid the heavy taxes of deliveries. After a while, Felix got tired of roaming around the streets and decided to visit an old pal in the bloodline market, whom he used to hang with and also purchase bloodlines from him. Hopefully, his password is still the same. He requested, "Asna, can you please read my memories in this time period from 2040 January to March?" Asna immediately understood what he was planning on doing after reading his mind. "Weren't you guys friends?" Asna exclaimed with her hands covering her mouth. "Do you really have no bottom line to even do that to your friend?" "My lovely Asna, if you read my memories carefully, you would notice that me doing this is thoroughly justifiable." Felix didn't even flinch at her belittling. A few moments later, her angry voice resounded in his mind, "That sick bastard is even worse than you. No wonder you guys hit it off so quickly and became friends." "Can't argue with that." Felix shrugged his shoulders and asked, "Tell me, did you notice his password?" "I still remember that I was looking at him typing it in his hologram, but I was too drunk to see it clearly and remember it." "Tisk, yes, I saw it." She suddenly spat, "I can't believe you were hanging out in bars with such a creep." "Trust me, neither did I." He shook his head and kept walking through the noisy crowd. "Sorry, sir, I have kept you waiting for a while now." A young man with coiled brown horns on top of his head, long goatee on his chin, and hairy goat hoofs, bowed to Felix respectfully. Felix stood up from the lounge couch and bowed back in greeting. "No need to apologize, Mr. Gowadi," he smiled warmly. "I know that you are working hard to please two types of customers, day and night." Felix eyed the stiff Mr. Gowadi with a hidden glint and continued with a respectful tone, "To own such a successful business, yet still head to the fields for a side job. Your hardworking character truly puts me in shame." He sighed and let go of the sweaty palm of Mr. Gowadi, who didn't say a word since Felix began dropping hints non-stop. "What's going on? Does this bastard know about my gallery? Or he is talking about something else?" Mr. Gowadi's mind was in an utter mess from just a few hints. He gulped audibly and played with his goatee nervously. Yet, he didn't say a word in response. He knew that his voice would crack if he spoke when he was this nervous. His customer could easily then infer that he hit the bullseye with his low-key threats. So, it was better to remain as quiet as possible until everything clears out. After all, he didn't know if Felix was only fishing or he truly had evidence of his hidden secret. Felix smirked slightly at this sight, as he knew exactly what this creepy Gowadi was thinking about. "Afraid of your cracked voice giving you away? Heh, you won't be worrying about that soon." Embarrassed, Felix rubbed his head and said with a soft voice that only the two of them could hear within the crowded shop, "Mr. Gowadi, I came to buy your entire Tier 5 serpent poison bloodline stock. And especially..." He put his arm around the terrified Mr. Gowadi's shoulder, then whispered softly his reason for building up his blackmailing. "I heard in 7 days there will a private auction happening in the capital city. I always wanted to attend one to broaden my horizons. He sighed, sadly, my reputation does not earn me an invitation. But my brother Mr. Gowadi can give a recommendation letter, right? It's not really hard for you to obtain it, based on the large network you built by relying on selling your gallery to powerful personals. Felix said, smiling warmly. Mr. Gowadi, who was on the fence whether Felix was fishing or not, now truly knew that he was F***ed big time. For an unknown person to know his deepest secret that he used tens of safeties to keep it sealed shut, sent cold chills coursing in his back. How much does he knows? It's impossible to find any concrete proof of my connection with the gallery. So he must be hoping that I would get scared and fulfill his requests without too many questions. Mr. Gowadi calmed himself down and removed Felix's arm from his shoulder. Then, he stared at Felix's eyes deeply and instructed him to follow him to a private room away from the ears of the shoppers. If you don't have solid evidence backing you up, then you provoked the wrong guy. Mr. Gowadi unlocked a small room at the side and closed the door after Felix entered. Immediately after turning around, he almost pissed himself in fear after seeing his gallery displayed in front of him on a large holographic screen. TSK, you actually managed to take even a picture of Mississippi Mia fully nude in the shower. Felix praised him sarcastically while looking at one of the best actresses in the Mariana Empire, fully nude, showing her assets in their glory. But still, my favorite is Madame Katerina, the wife of the Leukemia city governor. He glanced at him and questioned him sincerely, can you please enlighten me, how the hell did you even manage to capture her cheating on her husband? Scared shitless by Felix's questions, Mr. Gowadi's teeth kept chattering out loud while looking at the most prized picture that he took pride in, getting in the hand of a random person, who was not bound by any contract. This is impossible, just impossible. The only ones who own my gallery are the buyers. And they are heavily bounded by a contract to not let its content public. So how the F***ck did he get it? Felix closed the gallery while sighing in disappointment after seeing that he wouldn't be getting an answer from this dear friend of his again. All right, enough teasing this creep. Felix stood up and approached the terrified Mr. Gowadi with light steps. He put both of his hands on his shoulder and said coldly, you have 5 minutes to fulfill my requests. Otherwise, your gallery will be published all around the UVR with your name as an author. He grinned, trust me, those hundreds of women won't listen to logic after seeing their nude pictures get spread for everyone to enjoy. So if you think you are safe just because the gallery doesn't have single evidence connecting you with it, then I wish you good luck defending yourself against their assaults. He said, chuckling. Mr. Gowadi lowered his head and looked at the ground with a deadpan expression. He already accepted being blackmailed the moment he saw that his gallery was in the hand of Felix without a contract tying him up. He didn't need Felix to explain anything, as he already knew that the fate waiting for him if those pictures got published was even worse than what Felix anticipated: find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience. Felix accounted only for the woman's furious reaction, but he didn't take into consideration the reaction of their husbands and boyfriends. Mr. Gowadi wiped a tear that was about to drop after recalling that his targets were all popular or authoritative married women to even stronger men. Just one of them could crush him and his business to the ground without any ability to retaliate. So, he could only lift his head with watery eyes and nod at Felix in agreement with his requests. Don't worry, I will not keep this sword above your head forever. Felix smiled and patted his shoulder to comfort him. Mr. Gowadi's expression brightened a bit at Felix's mercy. However, that brightness didn't last for even a second, before it got crushed by Felix's gentle words. However, I will have a 30% discount on all of your products. He added with a grin, plus, you will handle the customs taxes of delivery. I live in Alexander Kingdom after all. Mercy! Mr. Gowadi cried out loud after dropping on his floor, kneeling before Felix. What are you talking about? I am still not finished from my terms. Felix eyed him indifferently and continued, last, you will prioritize buying serpent poison bloodlines from beast hunters and hold them for me. Please, enough. You are killing my business. Mr. Gowadi sobbed with his forehead on the ground. Felix didn't even flinch at this miserable sight. How could he show mercy to this bastard who photographed powerful women and sold them as a gallery for creeps in the UVR to enjoy? Even though the buyers were bound by a contract to keep those pictures to themselves and not use them to blackmail those women, but still, the act itself was despicable. He only found out about this secret side of his friend when it slipped out of his mouth during a drinking contest between them. That was also when he saw Gowadi typing his password to access his data bank in front of him. He wanted to display the gallery to Felix to brag about his achievements. He was totally wasted, thus he believed that he kept the hologram invisible, but in reality, it was shown in public. Thankfully, they were sitting at the corner table away from the rest. That's when Felix realized that remembering the password was a good idea and it might come in handy later. Since the sneaky bastard kept his gallery not hidden in his AP bracelet, but in a public databank that was 100% secure from hackers. One just needed to pay a monthly fee and all of his secret data could be preserved inside the bank. After all, AP bracelets were hackable. The queen inside each bracelet was a mere basic AI of her real self, acting as an assistant to the owner. Nothing more, nothing less. This meant, professional hackers, real good ones, were capable of hacking Gowadi's bracelet and stealing his data. Unfortunately for Felix, he was also too drunk to see what he typed exactly and remember them later on. However, with Asna, it wasn't impossible anymore, especially when he stopped hanging out with this ticking time bomb after he found out about his secret. That facilitated Asna's memory reading. Felix had to break their friendship as he knew that sooner or later Gowadi would get exposed, and as his close friend, he might get associated as an accomplice. That's why he was this heavy-handed on him with those terms. Their friendship died at that moment. Felix, add another term. Asna, who was enjoying the pitiful cries of Mr. Gowadi, decided to lay her hands as well. Tell him that he is forbidden from taking those kinds of photos ever again. Plus, to destroy his gallery once and for all. That's a good one. Felix agreed and told Mr. Gowadi this term, making him sob even louder while hitting his forehead on the floor. You devil! You should have those horns, not me. At least, I am not a creep. Felix said nonchalantly while bringing a holographic contract to his face. Sign it now. He ordered. Can I at least read it? No, tell the queen to do it for you. I don't have all day long. Felix denied him. Devil, you are a devil. Mr. Gowadi murmured while signing the contract with a shaky hand. Asna chuckled at this bastard calling others devil while appearing exactly like one. Good, go bring me your stock and write the recommendation letter. I will wait for you here. Felix retrieved the contract after seeing that it was approved by the queen and sat down with crossed arms, waiting for the Gowadi to stop whining and bring him his stuff. After seeing that sympathy was not working on Felix, he left the room with slumped shoulders, heading to the storage of his shop. Boss, what wrong with you? You don't look well, Mr. Gowadi. Ariad updated Estirise at n/vel/bin. Calm. Don't worry about me, it's nothing. He waved his hands politely to the customers, who noticed his red eyes and slumped shoulders while heading towards the storage room. Sigh, should I ask that devil how did he manage to obtain my gallery? He wondered out loud alone in the storage room while checking on the bloodline bottles Felix asked for. I doubt he will answer me. He shook his head. Even if he did, that won't change anything. My gallery is still in his hands. Depressed, he put 4 bottles in a small box and carried them towards the room Felix was at. Good stuff. Felix praised sincerely after seeing that all of the bottles that Mr. Gowadi brought were Tier 5 epic ones. He thought that he would find only one epic Tier 5 bottle and the rest would be rare rank. Thus, the sight of those bottles truly delighted him. This time, he might be able to find some percentages of J. Rumungandra inside and unlock the 3rd and 4th passives after he reaches 45% integration. Give me straight away their total price. He added, don't forget my 30% discount. TSK, you don't have to yap about it constantly. Gowadi clicked his tongue in irritation and displayed a list that had a price for each of those bloodlines. / Mango Rose Serpent, 280 million SC. Rotten Vine Snake, 320 million SC. The Titanium Horror Serpent, 387 million SC. Mold Fong Serpent, 410 million SC //. The total is 906 million SC. Felix didn't wait for him to tell him the total as he already asked the queen to do the math, and it was correct. He smiled with satisfaction and transferred the coins to Gowadi without delaying. Whoosh! Immediately after seeing that the transfer was completed, Gowadi touched Felix's bracelet as well and sent him the referral letter to attend the upcoming large-scale private auction. Satisfied about the entire business venture, Felix left the shop after reminding Gowadi one last time to take care of the heavy taxes between the empire and the kingdom. Even though the Alexander Kingdom was within the empire territory, they were still separate from each other. Just like the hundreds of other kingdoms inside the empire. Each of them had their own regime and ruling, and the empire couldn't interfere with those pests that were living inside its territory. The empire's golden age had already waned to this degree, making it the perfect place for bloodliners with ambitions of kingship to found their kingdoms. This was the reason Felix asked for a partnership with Luby inside the kingdom and not Gowadi here. After all, just the taxes and shipping fees would make reselling the bloodline a worthless endeavor. He couldn't just ask for Gowadi to handle the custom taxes of delivery both ways. At the end of the day, Mr. Gowadi was not a fool. He would easily realize that Felix was playing him after he works his ass off to secure him a bloodline, just for it to be returned later on. The worst part, he had to pay for both the delivery fees. Felix didn't want to jeopardize this thin relationship even more so. So, it was better to just sell to Luby his useless bloodlines. Can we play cards now? I am bored. Asna asked out loud while throwing cards like daggers at targets made of mist, resembling Felix exactly. The/W novel chapters are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. Whoosh! Slice! Asna clapped her hands in delight after seeing a card cut Felix in half from his nether region. Simultaneously, Felix felt a sudden chill in that area while seating on the back of a cab. Asna, are you throwing cards at me again? He asked furiously after knowing the only reason why he felt that way. Answer me first, and I tell you. Asna giggled while continuing throwing cards with concentration. Fine, we play tonight. Happy? Annoyed, Felix rubbed his eyebrows over having this burden, who just want to play and have fun. 3 days later, Fatty Worm came by and delivered the 4 bloodlines that Felix bought. However, just as he planned to leave, Felix stopped him and gave him 100,000 SC to wait 30 minutes. Fatty shrugged his shoulders and accepted the free money as usual. This happened quite a few times before, and he was already used to it. Thus, he made himself comfortable on the couch and watched an episode of his favorite series, waiting for Felix to finish whatever he was doing in the bedroom. Meanwhile, Felix sat on the floor with his upper body naked. He quickly took a large needle and injected the first bloodline of the arrived batch into his heart. Asna, as always forcefully read the memories of the bloodline and found that the J. Rumungandr essence was not within. She informed Felix about this tragic news, but he didn't brood over it too much. He was already numb to the feeling of disappointment. So, he just continued injecting the other bloodlines. The second one turned to have only 6%, which was not the best, considering that the bottle was an epic tier 5 bloodline. But it was at least a good start. Felix's expression brightened up a bit and carried on with injecting others. Immediately after injecting the third, Asna cried jackpot out loud and informed him that she found 13% all at once inside the Mold Fong serpent bloodline. Felix clutched his fist in excitement over finally securing the 45% integration. It's been quite a while now since he merged with any percentage. For someone like Felix who had no cooldown at all, to not be able to integrate at least from 3 days to 3 days was truly a waste of his 100% affinity. His cousins were probably already at 45% and climbing towards the greater purity. But he was still stuck in lesser purity. Good thing there was finally some improvement. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the face to be their captain while being in lesser purity. Felix calmed himself down and continued to filter bloodlines. He began using a new method of filtration that allowed Asna to split the bloodlines into 2 bottles. One, he filled it with the J. Rumungandr bloodline from all injections, and other, he just leaves it as it is, filled with the filtered bloodline. This way he could get this process over with all at once. Then, gives those filtered bloodlines to Fatty Worm to deliver them to Luby, or as before selling them to a random shop. Shortly after, he sighed dejectedly after hearing that the 4th bloodline was a bust as well. But getting 19% from buying only 4 bottles was good enough for him. 900 million SC was traded for 19%, a quite large increase considering he spent before 850 million or so without getting a single percentage. Fatty, please take those 12 bottles to this address. Felix emailed Luby's address and lined up 12 bottles on the floor. Are you going to pay for shipments or the receiver? Fatty asked while swallowing all of those bottles inside his throat. He will pay for it. Don't include it in our free delivery agreement. Heh, you only have 8 more free deliveries. Fatty Worm snickered, 8 more, and I will finally stop seeing your ugly face. At least, I am not as fat as you. He shooed him away, now scram, I need things to do. Fatty cursed him one last time and created a small wormhole in the middle of the room. He then jumped inside and closed it instantly. After sending him off, Felix called Luby and informed him of the upcoming extra 4 bloodlines. Luby didn't take it well, as he almost fainted after hearing Felix asking him to pay upfront 860 million SC. Felix didn't care about his sobbing and gave him an ultimatum of paying him in 6 days' deadline. He needed that money for the upcoming auction. He didn't want to lose an opportunity to buy materials needed for elemental potion due to his lack of coins. This opportunity wasn't going to come again in the near future. After saying his piece, he hanged up on Luby, who didn't stop begging to increase the deadline by a day or 2. Luby truly began to regret this cooperation. If he knew that Felix had such good networks to obtain bloodlines, he wouldn't have accepted the term of paying upfront no matter what. Too bad, he didn't know that Felix was simply buying from other shops and selling him at loss. After all, who would do such retarded thing? Felix immediately turned around and entered his bedroom, preparing to start integration as fast as possible. He must finish this 19% that he obtained in a minimum period of 9 days. He planned to split it into 3 phases, each having 6%, except the last one would have 7%. There was no need to torture himself daily and rush the process by harming his mind. he didn't get a 100% affinity to keep bothering about when and how much percentage he needed to merge with find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click hashtag %C3%B6 Rumungendrassens _47639174962008983 for visiting. So, the most balanced period was 6% every 3 days. He could take the pain without crying out loud and also have enough time to rest between. This decision, as expected, did not please Asna one bit. As she kept whining that he was a coward and wouldn't enhance his affinity anymore if he kept acting like this. Felix just ignored the sadistic queen that just wanted to see him get tortured and continued to integrate at his own pace. Soon, he walked out of the bedroom smelly as usual, heading towards the bathroom for a shower. The integration was successful and now he had 38%, slowly closing towards 45%. What kind of passives will I unlock this time? He wondered eagerly in the shower, hopefully, ones related to poison and not physical. He knew that his active abilities might look good, but they were still full of weakness. The only way to counter them was by having supporting passives that negated those weaknesses. Although physical passives were quite strong by themselves, such as his super strength. But his fighting style still relied on elements. He couldn't change that as he pleased. Otherwise, all of his experiences that he built in his previous life would be worthless. So he could only pray that his luck shines some light on him during unlocking. In front of a humongous medieval castle that was completely built by white bricks, Felix stepped out of his car and walked toward the castle's metallic gate. He clicked on a key and the car immediately went to park itself automatically in the parking lot. "Sir, can you please show me your invitation?" Unworried, Felix projected his referral letter to the front desk clerk, who was standing outside of the castle. The clerk scanned the letter by his bracelet to see if it was forged or not. A few seconds later, he bowed his head to Felix and welcomed him in a respectful manner. "Sir Felix, your attendance delighted our distinguished establishment." He stood up straight and showed him the way to the hall with his hand, where the other guests were currently socializing before the auction official start. "Thank you." Felix smiled in appreciation and entered inside the Beethoven auction building, which was owned by one of the best auctions companies in the empire. It was responsible for thousands of auction branches spread widely in each kingdom, whether in real life or in the UVR. Felix managed to enter one of their auctions in his previous life due to receiving Guati's referral letter, and what he saw inside utterly blew his mind. From famous celebrities, high-ranked SG players in the empire, to powerful authoritative personals. Felix at that point was merely an average individual who lucked out on an opportunity to mingle with those characters. That resulted in being an outcast in each gathering, whether in the hall before the auction began, or the banquet after it ends. No one bothered to give him a single minute to converse with him. Thus, he could only leave before the auction banquet after he couldn't handle being shunned at the corner of the banquet akin to an abandoned dog. There was no point in staying in an outclassed party. However, this time things were going in a completely different direction, as the moment Felix stepped inside the noisy hall, wearing a formal ash-gray suit, polished black leather shoes, and a white tight-fit shirt with a black tie, he managed to capture the interest of the majority inside. The reason they even turned was not only due to his clothing, but mostly due to his dreadful violet serpent-like eyes, plus his overbearing aura he kept emitting. An aura that only those at the top or confident to reach the top had. Those famous individuals could easily spot a goat inside a sheep herd from a mile away. That's why Felix's emergence caught their interest, especially when no one saw him before in any gathering. "Who is that handsome man? I never saw him before. But he can't be nobody, right? He is either disguising his face, or he is from another empire. Stop jesting, how can someone attend this VIP auction house meeting while hiding his face? True, I believe he is from another empire, or a high-ranked SG player who is using a different persona inside the platform. That's more logical. This must be then his real face. Felix ignored their murmurs and loud gossips, and simply carried on moving indifferently to an empty seat on the bar. The reason he used some of his real features instead of the random disguise was to throw them off from realizing that he arrived here using a referral letter and not earned an invitation by himself. Vis sit en velben, cm for EU ovals. It was easily noticeable if someone was using a disguise or his real face, just from the way he carried himself. And Felix's overbearing aura screamed of confidence and pride. Unknown losers would never be able to have that confidence, especially if they entered this den that was full of famous and powerful individuals. Felix in his previous life got instantly recognized as a lucky individual who chanced upon a referral letter, just from his constant nervousness when he approached them. That led him to being shunned throughout the entire evening. Felix didn't want the same to happen. He knew that this was an opportunity to make some connections with those individuals. It didn't matter if he made friends with celebrities or even just high-ranked players. Every one of them could benefit him one way or another. So he must elude them somehow to believe that he was as famous as them to facilitate their upcoming conversations. Since they assumed that he was a high-ranked player using his real face, then he must carry on the lie and get as many benefits as possible from it. I am quite intrigued by his SG persona. I might even have contested against him before, said a striking blue-haired man with snowy white eyebrows and beard while eyeing Felix ordering a drink at the bar. How about we go ask him together, Aaron? A croaky response came from a well-toned man wearing a flamboyant red suit, who was sitting on the same table as the blue-haired man. No, I would rather not humiliate myself. I bet he will 100% reject us. So you go ahead. Aaron waved his hand dismissively. Forget it then, better go try my chance with Miss Molly. Lion, you never give up, do you? Aren't you afraid she will report you to enforcers for harassment? Aaron chuckled. I wish. At least then I will receive a response for her, Lion said in a joking manner. However, he wasn't joking about going to Miss Molly in the slightest. As he stood up from his seat while fixing his suit's sleeves. Then, he took a deep breath and advanced in direction of three drop-dead gorgeous ladies, each wearing a different glamorous dress that kept men stealing glances at them from time to time. Lion focused only on the lady in the middle that was laughing sweetly while having a curly purple lock of her exquisite hair coiled around her finger. However, her laugh suddenly paused after noticing Lion approaching her. She frowned her eyebrows in irritation over the upcoming harassment. Stella, Natalie, quickly find a way for me to get rid of this nuisance, she requested softly while pulling them away from Lion to buy time to think for a way out. The ladies turned around and figured out what she meant after seeing Lion as well. Stella immediately said coldly, "Why don't you just report him for harassment? The bastard doesn't want to take a cue by himself and leave you alone after your constant rejections." She continued talking out loud so those near her and especially Lion to hear everything, so just report him, no one will blame you when he gets his account blocked. The ongoing chatter of those around them instantly quietened down after realizing that a juicy drama was about to unfold in front of them. Immediately after hearing what Stella said and seeing the people's sudden silence, Lion paused his footsteps, not having the guts to continue forward. He simply narrowed his eyes at Stella, who had her lips curled up in disgust. She didn't even try to hide it. Felix took a small sip from his drink while watching with amuse.e.m.e.nt, lucky, getting free entertainment before the auction starts. Why doesn't this be *tch mind her business? Lion glanced hatefully at Stella, who was pulling a hairlock behind her ear using a middle finger pointing at him. He switched his vision to others, who were looking at him with clear anticipation in their eyes, waiting to see him getting humiliated in public. TSK should not have made a move when those two *cheese were with her. He changed his direction and headed left, ignoring the disappointed sighs of those around him. He was not a fool to make himself a joke before the auction starts. So, it was better to advance on Molly later when she was alone. He went towards a clerk and asked him out loud where the bathroom was. The clerk gave him the directions politely. "Thank you, I was planning to ask an acquaintance about it." He smiled politely towards the clerk and added out loud while heading towards the bathroom, "But it seems that her beauty got into her head, thinking that all men are here to hit on her." Everyone chuckled lightly at this pathetic shot of saving face. However, they understood that if he didn't try to make an excuse to get him out of the hole that Stella put him in, he would get belittled even further. After all, to back away from just one sentence would put a quite large dent in his charisma. God knows those snobs would rather die before embarrassing themselves in front of their peers. Molly sighed in relief after seeing his back disappear at the corner. She hugged Stella and kissed her on the cheek, leaving a hazy purple lip mark. "You. I told you not to kiss me with your purple lipstick. You always leave a mark, ruining my makeup." Stella pushed her away and took a small mirror from her bracelet. She sulked instantly after seeing the mark on her cheek. Molly and Natalia giggled sweetly and put their fingers in their mouths under the gazes of men in the hall. Then, they rubbed them on Stella's cheek, trying to remove the mark. Sadly, they just made it worse as it got spread even further. Stella looked at her purple cheek speechlessly. "Is this my reward for doing a good deed?" Without waiting for those around them to laugh at her, she snapped her finger and her cheek was returned to its previous state. If it was not for this, Molly and Natalia would not have played with her like this. Friendship would break between females if this happened in real life. Satisfied with her looks, she closed the mirror and put it back in the bracelet. She then eyed her pranksters with a spiteful gaze. "You asked for it." She grinned and looked around her, evaluating every man in the hall to see who would be fit for her payback prank. Too old. Married. Arrogant. Womanizer piece of shit. Gay, no fun to play with. She kept commenting softly each time her eyes landed on a man. The two girls felt nervous every time they hear her murmur. "What is she planning to do with us?" Natalia whispered to Molly while eyeing Stella worriedly. "I don't know." Molly sighed, "But we won't like the results. She is always heavy-handed with her pranks." "It's you," Stella said, smiling. Their whispering stopped after seeing Stella walking towards an unknown man, sitting at the bar counter, drinking small sips of bluish drink while reading in concentration something on his holographic screen. Is she planning to hang with that man and ditch us as punishment? Natalia wondered while tilting her head slightly. Molly coiled a strand in her finger again and answered with an uncertain tone, "Probably not. She won't take it that far." A few minutes later, her eyes suddenly brightened up after seeing Stella returning to them with a smile. "See, told you so," Molly said. Still confused, Natalia nodded her head. "Beauties follow me." Stella took their hands and pulled them with her towards the bar. "What are you doing, Stella?" Molly asked nervously. I set us all a date with that handsome." She grinned at their dismayed expressions and said, "We will sit all in one room during the auction house." "But the auction rooms only have 3 chairs," Natalia said. "Exactly." Stella eyed them playfully and added, "One of you girls will have to either share a chair between you two or with him." She teased them, "Maybe, I will even sit on his thigh and let you beauties sit on each chair." "What the hell, Stella? That's too far," Molly complained while trying to break away from Stella's grip. Sadly, she had to stop her attempts after reaching the man's side. "Sigh, whatever, being with a stranger might even keep that horny dog away from me." She sighed, accepting her fate. She lifted her head to see who did Stella set them up with, and suddenly felt that it was not so bad after seeing Felix's easygoing smile. "Ladies, nice to meet you." Felix nodded his head politely and introduced himself. "I am Felix, please have a seat. Drinks are on their way." Natalia and Molly introduced themselves politely as they seated next to him. Honestly, they didn't even need to introduce themselves, as Felix already knew about their identity. "I am a big fan of both of your works." Felix complimented them sincerely. "To actually drink with Miss Molly, the current queen of dramas, and Miss Natalia, lead singer of Tigers of Love Idol band, is truly a lucky day for me." "Hey! Not fair." Stella jumped in front of him and pointed at herself. "What about me? Don't you love watching my movies?" Felix shook his head gently and said, "Miss Stella, how can you say that? I have repeatedly watched your movies." He approached her ear and whispered, "Especially, Sinful Purity movie. You're bad, how can you say that to my face?" She laughed and pushed him away. Felix didn't feel ashamed at all, bragging about watching repeatedly the only movie she had a nude scene in. Molly and Natalia tilted their heads in confusion at their flirting. What the hell, isn't this too quick? They just met. Molly thought. Did Sister Stella brought us to watch them flirt with each other? Natalia thought. They shared eye contact for a quick second and nodded in understanding. Game on! Let's see who will watch who. Natalia abruptly hugged Felix's left arm and asked shyly with sparkling sapphire azure eyes, "Brother Felix, which one of my songs do you love the most?" A bit baffled, Felix gave a side glance at her weird behavior. But still, he answered her after contemplating for a while. "It's quite hard to choose. However, my favorites are On Your Knees, Imaginary Road." He smiled and complimented her, "Especially Imaginary Road video clip, your beauty truly shone in it." Natalia didn't answer him back, as she lowered her head, avoiding eye contact with him. Her attempt to flirt backfired at her immediately. Molly laughed softly at her friend's reaction. She knew that Natalia gets awkward instantly after being praised by males. "Hee, Sister Natalia, I always told you the same, but you never believed me." Stella smiled teasingly and said, "Now that you hear it from Felix, you didn't refuse. Tell why so." Natalia's ears turned red in embarrassment. She didn't think Stella would go that far and twist facts like this, trying to make it sound like she had a thing for Felix. "Since you are playing dirty, let's see how you react when I do the same." Natalia ignored Stella's playful smile, and courageously whispered in Felix's ear while covering it with her small hands. Stella nervously watched Felix's expression turn weird while looking at her body. F***CK. Don't tell me she told him about that. Stella flinched at his invasive sight. She felt that every inch of her body was N.A.K.E.D in his eyes, especially when she wore nothing underneath her dress. Cough, be right back, I need to head to the bathroom. She stood up hurriedly and walked faster away from them. Yet she felt her cheeks burn after feeling 3 piercing gazes at her rear. She gritted her teeth and increased her speed even faster until she disappeared in the corner. Pfffffff. That what you get after dressing that way. Natalia and Molly laughed besides Felix, who was honestly quite uncomfortable about knowing such private information. He might have accepted having them in his auction room to not feel bored during the long duration of the bidding, but still, he didn't expect he would be hearing secrets from his stars that he loved to watch and listen to in his previous life. Oh well, might as well enjoy it, he thought to himself. His thick skin quickly helped him accept this situation. Felix warned her about her next garbage series. Asna's voice suddenly interjected in Felix's mind. No. Hee, with pleasure. Felix's slits thinned dangerously for a split second unnoticed by the ladies before returning to their normal size. "You are such a bastard." Asna cursed him after reading what he had in mind. "Is it possible to know if your next drama is already in production?" Felix turned his head to Molly as he casually asked. Molly stopped laughing after hearing him talk business. If he asked about the release date of her drama, it meant he wanted to watch it. But if he asked about production, it signified that he planned on investing. "Sir Felix, the production won't begin until next month," she answered seriously. Is he going to ask about investing in the series? Or he is just curious? I see. He nodded lightly and asked an unexpected question to Molly. "How did you find the plot?" "You can answer honestly about your real feeling." He smiled. "No one is going to judge you." Even though Natalia didn't understand what he was implying, she still nodded her head in agreement. Molly stared at his genuine eyes and didn't know what to say. She wanted to express her real views about the script, but she was not a fool to do so in front of a man she just met. So she kept hesitating to speak, not knowing what to do. Felix sighed at this sight and waved his hand dismissively. "Forget it, I apologize for putting you in such a difficult position." He paused, however. "Just from your hesitation the answer is pretty clear." He lifted his glass of bluish wine and advised her with a solemn expression, "Trust in your gut feeling towards the script. It's still not too late." After that, he ignored her completely and kept flirting with Natalia playfully, teasing her here and there, making her blush constantly. He didn't bother explaining what he meant to Molly. He already gave her a free future brownie, due to Asna telling him to warn her of that shithole she was about to fall in. If it was not for Asna, he wouldn't have bothered to say anything. He wanted to keep the timeline exactly the same as the last one for as long as possible. This action would cause quite an impact on the film industry if Molly listened to his advice. As the upcoming series she was about to cast in failed horribly due to another series grabbing the attention of every spectator. If it was not for it, the series would have performed as expected, average results, but stable income. However, because of this variable, Molly's series got bashed to the ground after it was being compared constantly between the two. Especially when the episode's release was close to each other. The difference got even more apparent to the audience. This constant bashing resulted in the series being dropped by the producers. No one got hit harder than the actors, specifically Molly, who was a famous celebrity within the empire. Felix planned to invest in that series. That's why Asna wanted him to enlighten Molly, as she didn't want the series he was about to invest in to crush Molly, who acted in 5 of her favorite drama series. However, Felix had something different in mind. "Why are you spacing out?" Stella immediately asked Molly after returning from the bathroom. She sat next to her and waited for her response. "Felix told me to follow my gut feeling when dealing with my upcoming series." Absent-minded, Molly coiled a curly strand on her finger as she replied. Did he now?" Surprised, Stella glanced at Felix, who was drinking with Natalia. She then patted her friend's shoulder and asked, "Well, what was your first thought after reading the script?" Molly looked at her tearfully and responded, "Trash." Stella didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her truthful response. Her company will skin her alive if they caught wind of what she said in public. "Well, then just don't do it, baby." Stella hugged her with a smile and advised, "You are Miss Molly. Do you think you will struggle to find another series to act in?" "I doubt it. So if you feel that you are not fit for the series." She poked Molly's nose with her finger and said, "Just ask your company to terminate your contract with it." "But they will refuse to pay the termination fees." Molly slapped Stella's finger away and added, "Even more so based on a hunch of mine." If I paid the fees, would you sign a contract with me to act in an upcoming series I am planning to invest in? Felix put his head between their hug while tempting Molly with a soft devilish voice. Ah. Ah. Both Molly and Stella yelped in surprise after getting interrupted abruptly by Felix's voice. Felix didn't wait for them to bash him for his gutsy move, as he quickly explained what he meant. I am willing to pay your termination fees. However, you must take the female lead role in an upcoming series I plan to invest in. Vexed, Stella's eyelids kept twitching, as she looked at Felix's serious expression like his head was not between their chests. Felix saw her staring at him, so he offered her his famous easygoing smile. This bastard, at least show some reaction when being embraced by two beauties. Stella didn't let him get comfortable too much as Molly seemed like she went absent-minded again after hearing his offer. So she grabbed his head that was lying comfortably between their chests and pulled him out. Tisk. Felix clicked his tongue and returned to his seat. It truly felt good lying in his favorite star's embrace. Only a few get such an opportunity, and he would be a fool to miss it. After reseating himself, he ordered another glass while sizing up Stella with a playful gaze. Her eyelashes quivered as she blinked nervously at the way he was looking at her. It seems like you fixed that issue at the bathroom, he suddenly said. PFFF. Don't bully her, brother Felix. We still have a long evening together. Natalia giggled at Stella's embarrassed look. Stella only lowered her head without sounding a retort. She knew that whatever she said would not uplift the current situation to her advantage. Thus, she could only grit her teeth and continue listening to their teasing. Read latest chapters at no.vel.bin/.c/o/m only. You little daredevil, I will show you hell inside the auction room. Just you wait. Stella narrowed her eyes at Natalia's cheerfulness. Natalia didn't have a single clue that her teasing had led her to an upcoming downfall. She merely kept laughing with Felix, not knowing that she provoked a vixen. Mr. Felix. Felix turned his head and focused on Molly, who called for him. She finally broke from her daze. Your offer has intrigued my interest. However, before I make a decision, I need to hear the details of the series you plan to invest in. She paused and eyed him strangely. Plus, the reason why do you need to go that far for me? It's simple actually. Felix smiled gently. I am a fan of your works, and I want you to act only in the best series there are. He said confidently, this series that I plan to cast you in is one of them. I will tell you about its details inside the room. He glanced at his bracelet and informed her, the auction is about to begin. A bit bashful, Molly played with her hair after hearing his reason. She didn't know if he was saying the truth or just lying to get in her good books. But him paying the contract termination fees wouldn't change. That's what moved her a bit. His willingness to pay 60 million SC to get her out of that shithole her company made her sign. Even though, he said that she must act in his series as a condition. In her eyes, that was merely a term to not make her feel indebted to him. She believed that the series he chose would not perform as bad as the one she was currently cast in. After all, he could have simply invested in her series and not waste millions to pay the fee if he wasn't confident that his series would perform better. So, she already decided that she would accept his offer. Her unwillingness to say so was simply to not appear too desperate. Felix knew this as well. That's why he was relaxed about this cooperation. Not pushing or forcing her to sign as fast as possible. Dear esteemed guests. A sudden sweet voice resounded in the hall, stopping everyone's chatter, including Felix's. Those who were sitting stood up and fixed their attire. They knew what's about to be said already. Please click the room number on your bracelet so you can get teleported inside. She paused for a second and continued speaking in a gentle manner. If you want other guests to enter your room, simply send an invitation to their UVR ID. Keep in mind there are only 3 seats in one room. In addition, only 5 guests can be invited. For further details about the auction rules, please ask the Queen AI. Thank you and good luck on your bidding. She ended the transmission as sudden as she activated it. The regular bidders didn't even wait for her to finish, as they teleported inside their rooms the moment she greeted them. This left the crowded hall empty with only a few guests here, and they're still conversing or waiting. Such as Aaron, who was still waiting for Lion to return from the bathroom. Sigh, that bastard truly hid in there until everyone left. He rubbed his snow-white eyebrows in irritation while watching the bidders around him teleport one by one. Soon, his eyes landed on Felix and the ladies, who were about to depart as well. I wonder how he will react when he sees his love interest getting mushy with that unknown player. He said, chuckling. Speak of the devil. He turned his head to the left and saw Lion standing still, staring at the girls, who just humiliated him in front of others, touch Felix's bracelet one by one. Lion knew that Felix had just received their personal UVR ID. He was chasing after Molly for over 2 months now, and he still didn't receive even a friendly smile, don't even mention her UVR ID. Too bad, that wasn't even the deadliest blow to his self-esteem, but what followed next? Felix and the girls all disappearing at the same time. Impossible. Giving him their ID is one thing, but King getting in his room is another. He couldn't comprehend how and why did they even decide to enter his room. It didn't make sense at all. He tried everything to get Molly's ID number, but he never succeeded. But here he was seeing his love interest, who was always giving hard time, easily get inside another's man room after meeting for only a couple of minutes. F.U.C.K.I.N.GSL*T, I believe that you treated every guy as shitty as me. But it turns out it was only me. His expression twisted from rage and humiliation. He already foresaw Aaron, roasting him throughout the entire evening about this. He took deep breaths through his nose, trying to regain his calm while approaching Aaron. However, that wasn't easy, as the closer he got, the easier he was able to see Aaron's mocking expression. At this point, Lion wanted nothing more but to ruin Aaron's pretty face. Alas, this was the UVR. King UVR rules. I can neither beat people nor pick up girls without being labeled as harassment. He huffed in anger and teleported immediately after reaching Aaron's side, not giving him a single chance to open his mouth. Stupid, aren't we entering the same room? Aaron laughed and sent an invitation to Lion. Sorry you have been blocked by this user for 24 hours, whoosh. A cold breeze caressed his face as he stood silently all alone in the empty hall, not knowing what to do anymore. After all, he only attended this auction to accompany Lion. Inside a cozy well-lighted room that had 3 red armchairs stationed near each other, light particles started to gather, forming 4 human bodies. A moment later, the process of teleportation finished. Felix and the ladies stood silently while eyeing the 3 chairs, facing a large screen that was showing the details of all the items that were going to be auctioned tonight. Obviously, except the last remaining 3 items, which had 3 questing marks on them. I am sitting in the middle one. Indifferent, Felix went and sat on that chair, leaving the other 2 for the beauties to contest for. He never had the idea of acting as a gentleman and giving them his seat while he remained standing. He came here to bid for items, not to please girls. He only accepted their offer of staying with him was simply to ease the boredom of bidding alone. However, if his comfort was going to be compromised, he wouldn't have accepted them at all. Stella already knew this, as Felix told her exactly so to her face when she approached him. So, she was not mad or disdainful about his manners. She just smiled with a playful glint and said, "Molly, you sit on his right, me and Natalia are going to share one." Molly did as told, as she really didn't want to sit on anyone's lap under Felix's eyes. That's too embarrassing for her. On the other hand, Natalia pouted in irritation and sat on Stella's lap. She knew that by being the lightest of the three, she wouldn't be able to escape the fate of sitting on someone's lap during the auction. Are you feeling conformable? Or do you prefer sitting on Felix's thighs? Stella whispered softly in Natalia's ears, tickling her earlobes. She began her revenge plan immediately. Annoyed, Natalia rubbed her ear without answering. She was thoroughly ignoring her teasing. Stella smiled and said nothing more, as the auction had begun. Ladies and gentlemen, I assume that all of you had read the auction rules before entering, correct? The Queen's monotonous voice resounded in the massive auditorium that had neither stage nor open seats. The entire auditorium resembled a closed-off cylinder that had on its walls large glass windows tiered near each other. There were hundreds of those windows on the walls, stretching to the sky. Each window represented a bidder's room. Felix was currently sitting in room number 44 right in the middle of the packed windows. I will not explain the rules as they will take too long. So, for the newcomers who didn't read them or ask me properly, it's better if you just watch the first bids and act the same. N/W novel chapters are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. Surprisingly, Queen AI was the one going to auction the items. But at the same time, it wasn't really that surprising. After all, the Queen was the only entity who was trusted wholeheartedly by the masses. Heck, the majority trusted her more than they trust their own parents, and for a good reason. She was the only autonomous authoritative entity that bows to no one. Not even her race. This meant she was unbiased in all of the judgments and ruling. In this kind of activity, she was always requested to lead and act as the host. No one would complain in her presence about the prices of the items auctioned or would doubt the legitimacy of them. Even if there was a problem with an item, she would make sure that it was clearly highlighted in her presentation. Let's begin. Without further ado, she displayed the first item in the air, rotating it silently. The item was a bottle filled with a grayish liquid substance. It was put right in the middle of the auditorium. No one could miss it. This is an epic rank tier 6 Spectrum Butterfly Bloodline. The starting bid is 500 million SC. She followed with, its full details are on your screens. You have 2 minutes to read them properly before we begin bidding. This was one of the rules of the auction. The Queen merely displays the item and leaves them to read its details. From the advantages to disadvantages of the bloodline without promoting it with fake information. Her way of auctioning was completely different from other human auctioneers. She neither spoke more than necessary nor tried to hype the auction with yells, making it resemble a noisy market. She simply played soothing music and left them to read the details of their bid in concentration. 2 minutes later exactly, she informed them to begin bidding. 520 million SC from room 12. 530 million SC from room 37. 570 million SC from room 140. She kept calling the bids clearly, even though not a single person spoke or raised a number panel. 660 million SC from room 3. 660 million SC from room 3 going once, twice, sold. Bam! The virtual gavel sound echoed in the auction auditorium. Immediately after, polite claps followed. Felix and the girls clapped politely as well. However, Natalia was having difficulty doing so, as her neck was being licked by Stella. Stop it! Felix is going to notice. Natalia begged softly with red ears. But Stella didn't even pause. She kept kissing her back neck and licking it playfully. Sigh, I wish I could trade necks right now. Envious, Felix kept peeking at Natalia, who was being eaten. She assumed that Felix didn't see them playing, but how could they escape his eyes? She was as red as a tomato. Even Molly noticed something weird going on between those two. However, she was too embarrassed to scold them. Org. Suddenly, a soft M.O.A.N escaped from Natalia's lips. She clasped her mouth tightly while looking at Felix and Molly, giving her awkward glances. Ha ha ha. Tears threatened to drop after seeing their looks. Stella removed her fingers from Natalia's chest while laughing in a delightful manner. Her revenge had been achieved. Natalia, come sit on my lap. Molly offered gently after not being able to handle seeing Natalia's watery eyes. Sniff, sniff. Natalia went to her while sniffing softly. She sat on Molly's lap and buried her head on Molly's shoulder, not daring to look at Felix anymore. Molly squinted her eyes at Stella, giving her a menacing look. Stella shrugged her shoulders carelessly and blew a kiss back at her. TSK, Felix, you really invited a fox in your room this time. Asna clicked her tongue mockingly after seeing him sweat from his forehead at those beauties' interactions. They were truly testing his patience. Heh, are you taking one of them home tonight or all? She teased him, knowing that he couldn't do so. F*CK. Leave me alone. You are the last thing I need right now. Felix shooed her away while wiping his sweat discreetly. Only now did he know that meeting his stars was not always a good thing. Their pure and angelic image instantly shattered after hearing Natalia's MOAN. Fortunately, they behaved properly after splitting them apart from Stella, leaving him to focus on the latest auctioned item that the Queen had just displayed. This is a leaf of a dawn tree. The starting bid is 280 million SC. A square-shaped milky white leaf was rotating slowly for everyone to see. Felix's eyes shone with delight after seeing it. Didn't think they would put it so soon. He quickly controlled the screen in front of him to show him the leaf details. He didn't have time to read the details of the items properly before. Soon, the milky white leaf was displayed with its details in front of him and the ladies. / name, Dawn Tree Leaf. Starting bid, 280 million SC. History: the Dawn Tree is one of the few remaining light elemental spirit trees in the universe after the spirit's mass extinction during the Dark Ages. It grows one leaf for each year until it reaches 100 leaves in a century. Afterward, it drops one leaf for each year until a century passes again. This cycle keeps repeating for eternity. Uses: firstly, it can heal an individual of any illness, disease, curses, poison, condition, and more. Secondly, it can be used to resist incoming curses by having it in a 1-meter diameter around the owner. Thirdly, it can be used as material to create potions, substances, artifacts, talismans, weapons, and more. Such as the elemental potion or curse resistance talisman. Drawbacks: firstly, it must be kept in a cold environment 24/7. Otherwise, it will lose its properties gradually until it becomes null. Secondly, it can only survive for 1 year before it turns to ash. //. The beauties didn't bother Felix after seeing him concentrating on the leaf's details. They figured out that he was interested in obtaining it. So, they behaved themselves and let him focus on the upcoming bidding struggle. As always, the Queen informed them to begin bidding immediately after 2 minutes passed. Felix decided to test the water first and bid low. Queen, 290 million SC please. He didn't click anything. He merely called his bid softly. 290 million SC from room 44. Simultaneously, the Queen called his bid out loud for others. A few moments later, the bid increased by 30 million. 320 million SC from room 1. Tisk. Felix clicked his tongue and stopped bidding, for now, wanting to see how far the price would reach. 360 million. 390 million. 480 million. 485 million from room 1. The bids carried on until they surpassed $500 million. But they still didn't stop coming. Though, not as fast as earlier. Felix decided to act now as he increased the bid by 20 million at once, hoping that it might turn off room 1 owner's eagerness. Sadly, it backfired on Felix, as that person increased the price again by a whopping 50 million. He clearly was showing his desperation for the item, telling Felix he would not leave without it. This was the only way they could communicate their feelings inside the auction, as speaking or knowing the bidder's name inside a room was forbidden. Do you want to bid? Simply call it in your room and the queen will handle the rest. This rule was added to stop those who try to increase the bid simply to spite their enemies. In addition, to those who beg other bidders to not contest with them to save their face water. However, the true aim of this rule was to stop those bidders who threaten their competitors publicly to drop their bid or face the consequences of offending their backgrounds. This childish method of bidding was completely uprooted by the Queen after it received multiple complaints from the abused bidders about it. Now, you either bid silently or go play in the corner and let those with coins do so peacefully. Those rules were accepted by all auctions, as they were quite beneficial to their business. Even though hyping prices was not allowed anymore, still, those who lowered the prices further using their background were even more plentiful than them. Hence, the only ones who were but heard about those new changes were the bullies. That's why Felix never cared about who was in room 1. He could be the governor of the empire capital city and he still wouldn't give a shit about it. So, he kept counterbidding each time nonchalantly. The beauties with him held their breath at the staggering amount of the current bid. 510 million from room 1. 540 million from room 44. 545 million from room 1. 600 million from room 44. SSSSS. Awestruck, Natalia drew a deep breath after hearing Felix call 600 million indifferently. An amount she could never reach even if she combined all of her album sales since her debut. Molly and Stella didn't react as excessive as her, but their eyes still widened from such a large amount. After all, they were simply invited in the auction as eye candy during the hall and the after banquet, not as true bidders. If they had such a large capital in the first place to bid here, they wouldn't even need Felix to pay such a petty termination fees. This was the difference between the commoners' world and the bloodliners. Felix could spend 600 million casually for just one material needed to concoct a potion. But in their eyes, that's an amount they could reach only if they slaved their entire lives. After waiting for a while, the person from room 1 didn't increase anymore. 600 million SC from room 44, going once, twice, sold. Bam! The Queen struck the gavel faithfully without delaying for even a second to buy time for Felix's contender to consider. The beauties clapped their hands cheerfully after Felix emerged victoriously. He accepted their claps with a harmless smile. Meanwhile, he was cursing the mother of the person in room 1 for being such a desperate **CK. Piece of shit, 200 million increase on one material. When did I offend you to treat me like this? Felix could only whine in his mind after losing 200 million, due to being unlucky in meeting a desperate soul like him. After all, the known market price of the Dawntree leaf was only 400 million. However, there was no supply at all to the public. Those resources were being traded between the upper echelons of the empire discreetly. And if some of those materials manage to bypass their clutches, they get sold in those kinds of auctions. Ones that Felix didn't even have the reputation necessary to join. So, he could only bite the bullet and spend that amount on the leaf, lest he regrets later and ends up not finding it. Coins could be earned back just as fast by using his memories. But those treasures could only be obtained from the high ranks SG prize pool or by joining the upper class of the empire. This meant reaching a high rank in SG was a must in order to obtain the rest of the materials. However, to reach high ranks in the SG, Felix needed to have enough strength backing him up. The only way to increase it was by getting the elemental potion and making a breakthrough into the replacement realm. In other words, he needed to find a third option to get those materials as fast as possible. Felix already had in mind a way to do so. However, it depended on his luck in the second game. Sir Felix, the serial code of the Dawntree leaf has been sent to you successfully. Instead of feeling excited at the news, Felix just sighed while glancing at his bank account that had only 700 million left after 600 million was deducted by the Queen. Whatever, I can earn more during my investment. Speaking about that. Felix turned his head and asked Molly, I will not be bidding for the next couple of hours. Do you want to hear the details of the series now? Yes, please. She nodded her head with a charming smile and said, I was planning to ask you after the auction to not bother you. Felix waved his hand casually and replied, Don't worry about it, I already secured the item I needed. His lax expression turned serious and continued, Before I share with you the summary of the drama plot, you need to sign an NDA contract, if that's all right with you? Of course, we don't mind. Molly spoke for them all and agreed to sign. Felix didn't waste time and sent them 3 holographic contracts. Even though Felix was doing all of this without even meeting the production company, he was not worried a bit that they would refuse his investment. Especially now that he had Molly, the drama queen, on his side. If before his chances to get a slice of that series cake was only 40%, now with Molly he could confidently say it's 99%. He knew that the production company would not refuse him when they see that he brought Molly to them. The perfect candidate for the lead role. The only reason they didn't manage to secure her in his previous life was because she already had signed with that garbage series. Thus, they could only use another actress. But now they wouldn't hesitate to replace her with Molly, even if they had to pay the contract termination fees. That's why Felix made them sign an NDA contract. He didn't want them to share information about the series with the public before he tells them so. Or else, he might end up shooting himself in the foot, gaining extra investors' competitors instead of an actress. A few moments later, the girls signed the contract and eyed him with sparkling eyes, waiting to be dazzled by the plot. Felix's eyelids twitched at this sight. He realized that he raised their expectation bar a bit too high. But he was confident that the plot would please them. After all, it was a super hit series in his previous life. I will only brief you on the plot summary and the 2 main characters. He coughed to clear his dry throat and entered his story mode telling. The plot didn't really have too much originality, as the story begins with a shy introvert university student who is invisible to everyone. He neither has friends nor a girlfriend. The only thing he does all day long was study, play games, and gaze from afar at his 5 years long crush. He pointed at Molly, That's you. He then carried on with the same pace. So far, the plot is average, nothing unique. However, there is a twist. He smiled mysteriously. The male MC's alter ego that was shaped with every characteristic that the FMC wanted in a man, suddenly replaces the MC shy and introvert persona when he fell in his apartment staircase and hit his head hard. Felix chuckled and continued, he never expected that the alter ego he was building since the moment he fell in love with his crush to replace him. But isn't that a good thing? He will finally have a chance with his crush. Natalia asked while tilting her head in confusion. Felix laughed even harder while shaking his head, No, it's not, because their memories are split. He doesn't know what his alter ego is doing and never will unless his alter ego shares it with him. Molly gasped after seeing the crux of the plot. Doesn't that mean he created his worst rival in love by himself? Bingo! But there is another twist. Felix grinned. The MC and his alter ego decided to split the day, as they got tired of their constant fight for control. So it was decided that 12 hours of daylight will be for the MC, while his alter ego will have 12 hours a night. In other words, each of them has absolutely no idea what they are doing when they get replaced, creating a 12 hours void each day. Felix rubbed his hands excitedly and carried on. This is where the plot thickens. The alter ego began working as a bartender to earn money as well as enjoy himself with single ladies. He didn't have the same feelings for the MC crush, as he was built in the MC's fantasies as a playboy. After all, he was simply fantasizing, a harmless thing to do. He laughed, but who would have thought that this harmless thing would get him into deep shit? Don't tell me, he met with the female MC and slept with her on the basis of a one-night stand. Stella exclaimed out loud. Delighted by her guess, Felix clapped his hands while answering, yes. The worst part. The FMC fell for him, not knowing that he was merely an alter ego to an introvert shy student in her university. Haha, I can already see the poor thing getting harassed by his crush, not knowing as well that his alter ego was causing it. Molly covered her mouth as she laughed. Indeed, but that didn't last for long as the MC finally decided to come clean and explain to her about his alter ego. Ha ha ha. The girls couldn't help but laugh after imagining that weird scene. Felix eyed at them and continued, that's not even the weirder part. What's weird was that the female MC begged the male MC to help her get into a relationship with his alter ego. And because the MC loves her so much, he couldn't refuse her request, thus creating a messy love triangle. The girls couldn't help but get excited as they imagined how that drama would look like on the screens. They knew that each episode would be filled with laughs, awkward moments, misunderstandings, and emotions. Things every drama fan loved to see. Felix grinned and said the plot ultimatum, the final twist is that the alter ego will try to assist the MC to get him in a relationship with his crush, making the already messy triangle even messier. Molly immediately stood up and said excitedly, I am sold. Where do I sign? Felix smiled wryly at her enthusiasm and sat back in his seat. Even though she was excited to sign, he couldn't provide her the contract now. At least, not until he speaks with the production company and convinces them to replace their actress with Molly. This process would take a while, as they would need to negotiate a new contract for him and one for Molly. Those procedures consume too much of his time. Maybe I should hire a manager who deals with those investment ideas of mine. So, I can concentrate on my bloodline path and games. He pondered. I will look through it later. He quickly dropped the matter and focused on Molly and Stella, who were quarreling about who would make a better female lead. I am better fit to lead in his series. I acted in multiple drama movies before as well. Stella argued elegantly, not raising her voice or using gestures. She simply said facts. The/W novel chapters are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. I am called Drama Queen. Molly was even worse, as she only kept repeating this sentence to deny all of Stella's attempts at poaching a good series from her. They might be friends, but when it comes to their interests, they wouldn't hesitate to bite each other's throats. So what? I earned Prestige Movie Award. I am called Drama Queen. I have no issue appearing nude in a scene if it's necessary, unlike you. I am called Drama Queen. If Felix chose me, he wouldn't need to pay your termination fees. I am called Drama Queen. Arg! Stop saying that, we get it already. Stella yelled in irritation and sat back in her seat. She felt like she was arguing with a brick wall. I am called Drama Queen. Oh, are you done already? Molly, who was repeating the same sentence subconsciously woke up from her absent-mindedness after hearing her yell. Stella, no need to argue any further, I am choosing only Molly. Felix quickly added after seeing her eyes get watery like she had been wronged, don't worry, I have multiple movies I plan to invest in. You would be my first choice as a female lead. Thank you, darling. Stella's watery eyes immediately dried up like a magic trick. A smile bloomed on her lips as she gazed at him. Felix's eyelids twitched at the sight. He turned around to Molly, not wanting to deal with this vixen anymore. Well, that's all for this part, truckers. See you all in the next video.